to call this thing?
I got it. Okay. Incredible, new, fantastic, astonishing, mighty, original, uncanny, sensational podcast.
I'm just going to put down infamous.
Hello and welcome to Infamous, the audio podcast. This is Brandon, or Mutilus on the forums.
This is Parker. Go by Tweak on forums.
This is Jeremy. Of course, no forums. I'll learn from you guys about forums. No forums.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have an action-packed episode ahead of us today, so we're going to get right into it. First thing, we have a small announcement. I just want to make sure everyone's aware. We're uploading lots of new battle reports to our YouTube channel every day. I'm going to be adding our fifth one today, and it's of the, spoiler, new formats. And so you go check those out on YouTube, and our channel's Infamous space MCP, as in Marvel Crisis Protocol. So Parker, with that, why don't you take us into the news?
News.
All right.
So first up, with the big news, just alluded to in the announcements, we've got new arena and party formats to hit the game. So new ways to play it for the very first time. Lots of games, introduce, as you get kind of into the middle age of a game, you start to see, players look for variety of formats. They want to be able to do things that are fun or interesting and different, shake up different parts of the game, so you're not just playing the same style. So we've got that now. Where do you?
So Parker,
do you find
have
that
you
now?
actually read through these different formats?
I haven't actually got the chance to do that. No, I haven't got to look at all of them.
Okay. Well, me and Jeremy actually played the arena format yesterday. So we'll walk you through it from what we remember. It was hell. I hated it. Every moment was terrible. No, but for real, it was really interesting. It seems like it's hard to describe because it was surprisingly different while being very similar. The list building is completely different because, as we discovered, you can actually fit several factions in. Like, it was pretty easy for me to build a 3-faction list, but for that to work, you kind of need a lot of overlap on whichever faction you're probably hoping to play the most. And what I noticed was, for Jeremy, who tried to play a single faction, you have to be very aggressive in the cards you select early. And you pretty much have to commit to a faction in the beginning. You can't really do either or unless you have a lot of dual faction characters.
So for the benefit of our listeners, what are the main restrictions like for list building? Why would you want to do dual factions?
So the way you build a roster is it's 15 characters, 0 tactics cards, and 5 of each crisis. And so at the beginning, each of you randomly deal 1 of your 5 crisis into the middle. The player with priority chooses color, just like normal. And then you'll choose of one of those 2. And so you have you're picking of 10 total cards, but your options are only 2 of the 10 on each side. And so you'll choose the scenario first, then you'll take turns picking and banning cards based on how it shows in the chart on the form, or not the form, but the rules section. Basically, you'll start off, you'll pick 1, then you'll ban 1, pick 1, and then you'll ban 2, pick 2, and then it gets a little bit faster as it goes on. But basically, you'll end up with 8 of your 15, and 7 of them obviously getting banned. And then you'll build a roster out of your 8, and then you'll select any 5 tactics cards that you want. You don't have to bring a selection of them, it's just any 5.
So my opinion, I haven't said anything about it yet, but my opinion of the whole situation is it is very interesting and it is very unnecessary. The game is still played. It just gets played with models that you wouldn't necessarily normally take. So if you're one of those players like kind of we are that have like everything and sometimes are gun shy about, I always take a 3-point Valkyrie. Well, guess who's getting banned if you don't put her in there really quickly? You're not getting Valkyrie. So then your options change and your list dynamic is going to change. So, I found it interesting and it was kind of fun to kind of like splash around in that pool. But again, I'm just, is it necessary? I don't know. It just seemed like
so.
It might
Obviously, it's not going to replace normal play, right? Like it's not meant or intended to surpass the basic format of organized play. It's not going to get rid of the normal 10-man rosters. So quick pros and cons. I think it's really good at getting you to break up the norm. So if you're getting kind of tired of the average match where you show up, like if you feel like your meta is stagnant, this is a great thing for you to try. Because instead of showing up and playing Web Warriors just like always, or you're playing Cabal just like always, like showing up and letting your opponent ban out the stuff they don't want to play against allows you to kind of explore different options, and you'll probably end up finding things that you like that you haven't tried before. Like, Jeremy probably never expected to pair Miles Morales with Ronan, but he did, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
That was the trap. I had always planned on that.
Yeah, he tricked me into banning out all of his good characters.
You dumb fuck.
But anyway, you should actually, if you just watch the pick and ban step, which is about 20 minutes of us setting up the game, it's actually pretty interesting. Other pros, it really lets you expand. Like usually the restriction of 10 kind of limits what you can do with some list building. One thing we hypothesize is like Black Order becomes a lot more viable when you can have a completely different option available to you. And so you can take a lot of the stone users and the stones in a list without like getting completely crippled by the stone tax of eating up all your roster slots. And then obviously breaking up the norm of the, you're playing the same game against the same people a lot. Cons being that it takes a lot longer to set up because you're probably going to spend about 20 minutes in the pick and ban phase. You have to build 50 completely different rosters. And so I think there's a lot of strategy that can go into what you put into your 15-man roster as opposed to a 10-man roster because it opens up a lot more options. Anything else that's negative that I haven't added?
I don't know about negative, but I think the positive, I think you had said it, but if you absolutely hate a model and it's not their first selection, you can make sure you don't play against it. I mean, in our game, I certainly did that. I'm like, Magneto was there. I hate playing against that guy. Yeah. He's gone. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because you banned Magneto and Hulk out of my roster, so you prevented me from playing like a super elite team, which I love doing. So it definitely broke up my norm. And if you do have a character that someone crutches on super hard and you're just tired of seeing, and specifically if they're not a leader model, like if you just hate playing against like Killmonger or Modok, for example, and they take that model first, you can really punish them by banning the leader that they want to take them with. Or if it's a character like Doctor Strange that uses a stone, you can ban out the stone that you don't want to see on the character. So like, if you're tired of seeing Thanos with the Time Stone, and they first pick Thanos, you just get rid of the Time Stone. It's a completely different game now. And now they're forced to take the Mind Stone next, probably, which could leave you to being able to ban someone like Corvus Glaive or the Reality Stone. And you can really start forcing them to break up their normal list. And so it advantages people that have list flexibility. So you have a lot of characters that fill the same role and not a very specific list. And so I would say that I think that's probably the benefit of it is if you can go in with the ability to flow into different lists, like anything in your roster you're happy playing, you'll probably come out the other side pretty happy.
Cool. So for the clarification, because I'm looking at in the rules section of Atomic Mass right now, it's called the Battle Realm, right? That's the format that you guys play.
Yeah. Well, Realm. Yeah, it's listed kind of oddly. So it's the arena format, and it's called Battle Realm. And when you open it up, it says Battle Realm. Yeah. So the Battle Realm, I think, is the official one, but it says arena. So maybe we'll see new arena formats. Mm-hmm. Maybe arena will be a game type, and there'll be multiple formats within that.
The other one I see here is called Collector, right? That was the other type.
Right, which is the party format. Uh-huh. And so the Collector, I think, is intended, like, let's say you have one person who owns everything, and you want to get your friends into the game, but they don't want to necessarily have their own collection. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're all splitting one collection, this would work really well for you. And so basically you build up little, like, booster packs, and then you take turns drafting them, and the booster packs have guidelines for how you build them. They basically have to be semi-playable rosters, and there's a lot of, like, bullet points that you follow. And so, yeah, you'll draft those and build rosters out of them. And so that seems a lot more fun if you've got, like, one person supplying models, to multiple people, that sounds like a great way to do that.
Yeah. I was going to say that I had not getting to play it yet. There's one thing about the Battle Realm that is really nice, the one you guys got to play, which is it allows players to not necessarily eliminate Jedi curve type characters, because you're going to get one, but you're not going to be able to saturate your list with Jedi, right? You're not going to be able to saturate your list with things that seem impossibly strong, which is something that can make a really negative play experience in the hands of a really competent player. I don't know if it completely levels the playing field, but that's one of those things. It's a game softener, I think. I think it softens the game. One of the problems with it is, if there is a problem, is if there's a novice playing, well, they won't know what to pick and ban, right? So it doesn't necessarily.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It doesn't necessarily help
I think
someone
this
who
format
doesn't know how to play.
Yeah, this format is definitely for like the more competitive and seasoned players. It actually reminds me a lot of like Iron Gauntlet back in the day with War Machine, where you would have like a sideboard that you could change about stuff, and you could only play casters off of a certain list. And so there was a lot of extra restrictions for list building. But ultimately, you probably got closer to an actual competitive game because there was a lot less list chicken. There was a lot less like rock, paper, scissors matchups. You were tailoring your list versus your opponent after like you've found out who you're playing and stuff. And so this feels a lot more like that. But again, it was a lot more time consuming. A lot more preparation had to go into it. And so like that, those are the negatives. But I think the outcome was probably preferable in the long run, because it was a lot more balanced games. But again, you're putting a lot of investment into getting that to happen.
Yeah. So that is the brand new format. Unless you guys have more do you want to mention it since you got to play? Good.
Well, we only played the one, so yeah, that's all I have for that, okay. Unless Jeremy has more to add.
Nope, I don't have anything to add. It reminded me, I think you did a good comparison to some of the War Machine stuff, and obviously the people who created the game and all that come from that environment, so I think that was created in War Machine with the whole pick a model and get rid of it kind of deal. Didn't they have that in War Machine? The banning of...
There was a format called Hand Cannons at Noon, where it was a 3-list format, and the first thing that happened is you choose an opponent's list they could not play during
There you go.
match.
Okay.
So you would eliminate one, then they would pick one of the remaining to play against you. Which was an interesting format until you just bring 3 identical lists, and then it just broke down.
So
really weird. But I mean, that was an obvious oversight.
So there is a caveat that I'll put out there. Anyone who decides to watch the video after listening to this, I clearly wanted to play criminal. Clearly, I fucking said it.
I knew we were going to get to this.
We have to, because it's not fair and it's bullshit. And I
need to defend my position.
I have to defend what happened. Okay. I showed up at the store. My only goal was I wanted to play Ronin with a goddamn time stone. And I thought maybe I'll play Ghost Rider. Well, we started playing this funky format. We didn't look at how the bands worked before we started it.
That's true. We did not dry run it. We didn't read in advance and try and plan for it. We literally just walked into it blind on purpose. So hold on a second. I want to pull this up so I actually have it right here so we can be accurate. Hold on.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's go to the videotape.
Go to the tape.
No, well, I mean, if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it, right? Hold on. All right. Add note. I need to paste this because I have your list here. Okay. So Jeremy's selection of 15 characters in his roster were Baron Zemo, Ronan the Accuser, Ghost Rider, Rocket Raccoon, Spider-Man Miles, the Power Stone, Kingpin, Captain Marvel, Modok, Killmonger, Green Goblin, Taskmaster, Black Widow, Doc Ock, and Valkyrie. The characters that were banned from his criminal roster were
Son of a bitch.
Modok, Killmonger, Green Goblin, Taskmaster,
Aww.
Black Widow, Doc Ock, and Valkyrie. The criminals that were not banned from his roster were Kingpin. So, I will let you take for what you believe this to be. His final squad was Zemo, Ronin, Ghost Rider, Rocket, Spider-Man. So basically what happened was he first picked Kingpin, obviously, like the correct move. There's no question there. And in Jeremy's defense, he wanted to play Ronin. His whole goal in this game was to learn how to play Ronin because he likes the character. So his second 2 characters taken were Ronin and the Power Stone. And then my next 3 bands were Modok, Killmonger, and Taskmaster. And so at that point, it was basically impossible for him to play criminals. So he just gave up, which was the correct choice. Because there's no point in taking Green Goblin because you still
No.
can't be a criminalist at that point.
No.
And so he had to abandon his original strategy and move into unaffiliated.
And again, it goes to the fact that we didn't see how the bans actually worked before we did it. I didn't realize, and Brandon didn't realize until we talked about it, that you get to ban 2 or 3 like at a time. Just a big wad of dudes gone. So yeah, he gutted my criminals like all at once, and then it was I put a bunch of good guys in there, so fuck it, we'll use quality dudes and just see what happens.
Yeah, I think one of my 3-person ban was Killmonger, Green Goblin, Taskmaster.
Yeah, it was all at once.
I think was my 3. Yeah, it was just like, well, I'm done. Like, I can't play criminals.
When you peeled out
what?
Taskmaster, you really gutted me.
Because the second player gets to ban 3 characters in one go. It happens later, but because he was prioritizing Ronin and his Power Stone, he ended up... Here, I'm not on the right page.
I was going to say, I was looking at the Battle Realm rules.
Did we do something wrong?
I'm looking at the Battle Realm rules right now, and it looks like...
The 4th option for the off player is dismiss 3. And so if you look, he recruits 1, dismisses 1, recruits 2.
Yeah.
That's when he got Ronin and the Power Stone, and then immediately I dismissed 3. And so because he hadn't taken a criminal yet, he was basically screwed.
Yeah.
And then he immediately dismisses 3, but I had prioritized the stuff I really wanted to play with, and so I still had the core of my list available. And then I'm just plugging things into it to make it work.
And that's where it brings back to your point about having faction characters, multiple leaders maybe, and then having multiple factions. So like criminals and Cabal might be really good bedfellows because there's so many multiple faction characters there.
And he had Spider Foes in his list, but at that point he already had Kingpin and he didn't want to change over, and so he probably could have still gotten Spider Foes at that point.
I could have when we looked at it, but I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, no, I just didn't.
Yeah, he had already walked in wanting to play what he wanted to play, and if he had switched over to Spider Foes, now he's playing Kingpin, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Ronin. Like, is that even a decent list?
I don't even think it fits. Like, I mean, I
don't. Let's see. So that's 8, 11. Ronin is 5. You could have just gotten in, but then you would have had to add a 2-point character. So you probably would have added like Black Widow or something, or Rocket, because I think Rocket made it to the later point.
Anywho,
it would have just been a really weird list that like didn't really do anything.
The Royal Sampler that I played wasn't exactly my intention. And it all happened, and that's why it happened. It's not basically okay. So here's the takeaway: anyone wanting to play it, you have to realize that second player gets to take the bigger bite first when it comes to nuking your shit. That 3 hit is huge.
It actually ends up being the same. It just happens in a weird order. Because it's actually that's why I was checking a second ago. It's actually paired all the way down in what happens, but the off player gets to do it first technically, but you get to do it to them before they pick again. So it ends up being about the same.
both players.
The big deal is that you're picking first, and so they're getting to pick stuff after you've picked stuff, and so they can try and counter you with their picks.
So it felt correct, even though I had priority. It felt like you punched me just as hard. I mean, it was fine. The whole thing was fine. If we would just looked at it and thought about it for a minute before we tried it, it would have been different. But whatever, it's fine.
The thing I actually found the most jarring about this whole thing is you have almost no control over the scenario. And I feel like that was on purpose. Because, I mean, if you were able to like guarantee a certain deployment, because you get 5 of each card, but if it's a normal mission where you can basically guarantee that one of the options, like for example, when I play my low model count list, I do the Echo deployments, all 3 of them. So it is guaranteed if I get blue, we're going to play an Echo deployment, and it's pretty likely if I get a red mission, we're going to do an Echo deployment, and if not, we're going to do a Charlie deployment across the middle the other way. So it's pretty much guaranteed I can do a low board spread scenario. But on this, with each person throwing in 5 of each type, it's just a complete crapshoot. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I don't know if that was intended to stop some interaction, but it feels like it would be, or else why would they increase the number of scenarios?
Yeah, it just makes it more random, but so also is like your list, right? Not necessarily random, but more unanticipated. Like, you can't anticipate precisely what's going to happen with your list. So, too, can you not anticipate what's going to happen with your objective. You can't bank on things easily. So that's cool. I think I do like that you get to... That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I do like that you get to see the scenario before you do the bans. That feels really important. I actually think they put a lot of thought into this because of the way the bans go in which orders and the fact that they go from one side to the other side. Because it's kind of like a snake draft. If anybody's familiar with a snake draft, the player going first ends up going last. And so that it kind of balances itself in that manner. It's interesting. I think they did a lot of good things in it. It's just the added time to the game. One of the selling points of the game is that it goes really fast and you can play a game in like an hour. And so being that you're going to add about half an hour to the game between building your 15-man rosters and selecting your tactics cards. Another thing, this might be a really good option once there becomes a lot of tactics cards bloat. And when there's like so many tactics cards that you can't, like a 3-faction list like would need like 15 to 20 cards to be able to like select the things you need. So anyway, we probably talked enough about this, but I was actually pretty excited. It was interesting. I had fun in the game. It was very jarring because I was surprised how different it was than a normal game.
No, I'm actually a little excited to try this. I think I also need to play regular games a lot too, but I am excited to I'm excited to try something. I love one of my most fascinating things about a lot of games in the League of Legends kind of feel is the pick and ban phase, like which is functionally what the recruit and dismiss phase is. I think it's a fascinating like game within a game, and it also asks you to bring like a certain mindset into the game, more of a growth mindset than a fixed mindset. Like you're going to find out, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to do something. I just have to see how this plays out. And I love the ability to more strategic choices than just what models are moving. There's a strategy before the game even starts. I think that's cool. I think every layer of that in the game can make it interesting and fresh. So let's move on to the next bit of news, which is we have She-Hulk's card, which is remarkably exactly what we saw. They were the article that they did, Atomic Mass Games put out, panel to play article, really detailed everything except some very, very, very important details. For instance, her sensational uppercut, one of the first native 7-die strikes in the game. Is it the first 7-die total? Like, is that it? I think that's it, right?
It's the first strike, like 0 cost attack that does 7.
Yeah. And we wanted to know if this attack gains power for damage dealt, and it does. It also gives
that was
out
the
slow,
big point.
But, yeah. So with that, we can all tip our hat to old Bruce Banner and wait for him to get an upgraded World War Hulk version. Hopefully, World War Hulk happens to him at some point or something cool. Because
I'm sure we'll see more Hulks. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with like 3 or 4 at one point.
But almost everything else that came from the card that we were expected did happen. She doesn't have 2 sides like regular Hulks. The defense rests her big attack is precisely like they said it was, but it's great 9-die attack with slow and stun. And if it already has slow, then it's stagger, which is great. We know that she's the leader of Defenders of Arcadia. And when that happens, if any allied character is damaged by an enemy effect, another allied character may gain 1 power, and that happens more than 1 per turn. So you get that on your turn and your opponent's turn. But of course, it's an enemy effect, so happening on your turn would only be something like Rocket Raccoon setting off a trap. But it does work since it's an enemy effect.
Each character can only gain 1. So when a character gets attacked, it can trigger it every time it takes damage. As long as it has another ally to give the power to.
Right.
So if you were playing a 4-character team and someone was damaged 3 times, you can give out a power to each ally.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a really strong effect.
And then it resets that range every turn.
Yeah.
Is a very good leadership ability.
Yeah. We'll have to see the other defenders.
It may actually rival like Captain America, I think. It's a lot of free power.
Yes. And the fact that it's also no range is also amazing, because a lot of the really strong effects we've seen are within a range, and this has none, which is awesome. The
which range are you referring to?
like some of the.
I can't
well,
think
I
of
guess
anyone.
you're right. I guess you're right. The only one I can think of actually is X-Men. Never mind. Cyclops. Is Cyclops the only one with a range, or are they all just forever range? Maybe I'm just
Cyclops and Storm have ranges on theirs. I think that's it.
Maybe I've just been staring at X-Men all week.
But I mean, Storms is like place yourself within a range of another ally.
Right.
Like obviously that has to be limited.
I guess criminal syndicates.
The giving other
criminal syndicates.
Yeah, but I mean you're handing an objective token off, right? So it involves the moving of something. So obviously it has to be limited. Just like So Scott's is really the only one that's range limited that doesn't involve moving something.
Okay. So standing corrected there, a lot of them are everybody getting it one, but still really strong ability. We know clear the court is a great throw, another size 4 throw, superior weight training. Again, she adds dice equal to the size of the target. So that was Gamora's ability, right? One of her attacks. Is that Gamora that does extra damage?
No,
for
I
size?
don't think anyone does that.
No, somebody already does that. Oh wait, I'm actually thinking it might be Angela. Actually, yes, I think it's Angela's.
Oh, that might be true because she's not a character in the game.
Yeah, not yet. And then legal defense or another power. It's protect, which she has protect. She has protect and defenders of Arcadia.
Bodyguard.
Yeah, so she's gonna be she's a bodyguard and has defenders of Arcadia. Man, she's really strong with 20 health.
So the important interaction here is it sounds kind of dumb because if she bodyguards, she doesn't get the power. Mm-hmm. But it means that if someone gets attacked and she doesn't bodyguard it because she doesn't have enough power, you can then give the power to her so she could bodyguard the next one.
Right.
And so that's actually a really good interaction.
And then, of course, on top of that, if she ever suffers damage from an enemy after it has to an attack. But the character, if she suffers damage, she can advance towards the attacking character.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as aggressive on Crossbones and Sabretooth.
But she's got 20 health for it, and she does gain 2 power a turn also. So man, the girl's going to have lots of power. She's going to hit hard. But Brandon rightly pointed out when we were discussing her a little bit earlier, she doesn't have any movement abilities other than Gamma Transfusion, so you have to attack her for her to move. So one of the things about her...
Go ahead. All of her mobility is based around your opponent doing things. Right. And so a smart opponent can avoid triggering it at bad times. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the bodyguard helps, but I mean, within reason. Yeah. She's, I would say, really vulnerable to attacks that push her away or any effect that pushes her away without dealing damage. So if you have someone like with a Mind Stone or with a throw that can push you away and it's not an attack, like that's really strong because it can take her out of bodyguard range and it gets her out of attack range because she doesn't have any way to gap close at that point. And then you can attack her friends.
Even if she never joins the fight, she's going to be contributing to the game. Definitely she greases wheels all over the place. But if she doesn't join the fight, you paid 6 points for a Hulk that never got to punch anything. So definitely she's a highly controllable character, which is how they balanced her with giving her a 7-die base attack that gains power and slows. So she's actually got to get to you to do that. So she'll be really strong if she goes into opponents without control. I think it'll be a really strong matchup most of the time.
She has a far superior defensive stat line. She's much better on her initial, or her attacks are just better. Yes. The big downsides is she doesn't have mobility that's under your control, and she only generates 2 power turns instead of 3, but she'll end up with more power in the long run.
Yep. And last bit of news, just a small thing that we already knew a lot about.
I think that's it.
But no, there's more.
No, I think that's it.
No, there's actually more. On the on Atomic Mass Games website, and the upcoming releases, Angela and Enchantress are now on that list. So they're coming.
I mean, that's not news, Parker. This section is for news.
It's news. It's really important news. It's the most news. The most
Parker,
news I've ever had. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm excited about Angela, and that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Take it away.
All right. So that moves us out of the news section into playing currently. So, Jeremy, you were playing criminals lately. Do you want to talk about your criminals list?
Well, do you mean my criminal soup? the ones that I declared were criminals when I pointed at him and I'm like, "You're a fucking criminal." He's
Yeah.
like, "No, I'm not." I was like, "You're also a criminal." Nope.
Well, my favorite is how the criminals you included in your list, such as Doc Ock and Baron Zemo, those were my favorite criminals.
In my mind, they're criminals, but
They probably have committed
apparently
crimes, to be fair.
not.
I think they're both
yeah.
criminal.
We had that conversation while we were waiting on you, and he's like, "Well, this guy steals all the time." I'm like, "That doesn't mean you're part of the syndicate."
Like that son of a bitch. Yeah, but I actually have been playing criminals a lot, and I've started kind of like playing the table like I'm playing criminals all the time now, and I'm like, oh shit, it doesn't work the same way. I'm like, I'll run a guy over there and I'll just take that. Nope, doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of annoying. So lists I've been playing lately, I've been playing that Avengers Defenders list that we talked about. I can't remember if it made it onto the podcast or if it was after we wrapped. But basically it is Doctor Strange and Wong for Defenders, and then the Avengers, which have some overlap, is Captain America, Hawkeye, Hulk, Wolverine, Black Widow, Time Stone, Soul Stone. I think there was one more character I'm forgetting.
Did you get Black Panther?
Anyway.
You thought about Black Panther, I remember.
I did not take Black Panther. I think I put Captain Marvel on the list, actually. I just never planned on playing her. But anyway, it ended up being as good as I thought, which is going to lead us to a later topic we'll bring up later. But it felt very similar to my Magneto list. Hulk basically replaces Magneto, and you get to throw in Captain America. You play the list in Avengers pretty much regardless of what your list is, because you want a day unlike any other ability. And it is... Doctor Strange should not be allowed in Avengers. That is super not okay. He gets so much free power. It's crazy. Because he gets to, just for one, give people +2 defense dice all the time, and he generates so much power anyway. Oh man, it's so silly. And then obviously getting to use the Time Stone with that ability, or heal people, like there's so much he gets to do. Anyway, so that was fun. It was a very successful list build. Unfortunately, because it's so similar to my Magneto list, then I'm probably going to quit playing that as well, which is going to bring me to the new list I'm working on, which is Cabal and Brotherhood, which I'm excited about. It's pretty straightforward because, obviously pretty much the entire Brotherhood is currently in Cabal, so it makes it pretty easy to build a list.
They're all criminals.
You just put all the criminals in.
They're all criminals.
Miles Morales, Rowan,
they broke the law.
Accuser, Valkyrie.
Sons of bitches.
Anyway. All right. So we're going to move on a bit. So that's going to, unless Parker, you have a list that you've been building that you want to talk about?
No,
You'll play games.
I'm good. I need to play games.
Okay.
My currently playing goal is just to play some freaking games. I need to play some games.
I told you we should have played a game last weekend.
I know you
got
did.
a hold of me.
I know you did. I believe in you, and I believe I did.
I mean, it worked out because I was really busy last weekend anyway. All right, so moving on to our next topic, which is going to be Crunching the Numbers segment. This week on Crunching the Numbers, we have a much more exciting segment that's not just math. It is the throws. Mm-hmm. I've compiled all the throws currently in the game. And for Parker's reference, this includes characters in the game, not characters not in the game.
But there are some.
I've broken this up into multiple segments. We have throws that can affect enemies and terrain, throws that only affect enemies, throws that only affect terrain, throws that only affect yourself, and throws that are bombs. So let's start with the bomb section. This is just a little silly part. Basically, we have Mystique, Punisher, and Green Goblin. All three of them have the ability to just use a superpower and destroy a piece of terrain, and then cause some kind of affliction to people near it. Mystique and Punisher's is identical. They just take 2 damage flat. Green Goblin is amazing once I start diving into the numbers here, because not only is his not an action, it's a reaction, and you actually just collide with the terrain, which means its potential damage is actually higher than 2. Because if you blow up a size 3 piece of terrain, that's 4 damage. The average defense roll is less than 2. It's actually statistically better than the other ones. It also happens at a farther range. It's within 2 of the piece of terrain, which is really cool. So moving up to people who can only throw terrain. If someone has multiple throw abilities, each individual ability has been broken up into its own section. So people that can only throw terrain, we have Ebony Maw, Magneto, Modok, Ultron, and Wasp. I thought there would be more people on this list. I seem to remember reading a lot of throws and saying, oh, he can only throw terrain. But apparently it was just because Ultron is dumb.
Hey, but guess who's on the top of this list, everybody? We finally got it. We found out the thing he does.
And he's not. Okay. Apparently Parker is trying to read into my chart that doesn't mean anything.
Oh, I thought it meant something. That doesn't mean anything?
It doesn't.
I'm reading the ratings. Those are not right. Okay, cool.
The ratings are correct, but sometimes numbers are a liar sometimes.
Okay. You tell me.
Okay.
Clarify for the listeners who I'm talking about and
okay.
why it's all
So
a lie.
I've broken this down. There's categories on these throws. So the categories are size of terrain that can be affected, the range at which you can target the terrain, the distance at which the terrain gets thrown, and the cost of the power. And so all those have been accounted into a small formula I made, which is basically size times distance plus range divided by cost. And so that spits out a number that's about between 5 and 20, and that gives us an overall rating. So at the top of the terrain-only throwers chart, we have the Ebony Maw.
Yeah.
Champion.
Which is the second time he's ranked the top of the list. The other one was bad models. Yeah. This one is not necessarily bad models. Obviously, anyone who's listened to our thoughts on Ebony Maw hates us or hates them all. It's pretty much one or the other. So, the cool thing about the Ebony Maw, and the reason he's at the top of this list, is because he can throw size 4 terrain long. That's why he's at the top of this list. And his power only costs 3. The reason math is a liar sometimes is Magneto has the exact same ability, except his is cost X, size X, and is usable more than once per turn. And so the formula comes out to Ebony Maw gets a 17, which I think is actually the highest on the list. It is the highest rating anyone got at a 17. Magneto got a 16.75. But the Magneto only has to spend power equal to the size of the terrain, which means if he's not throwing a size 4 piece of terrain, he gets a discount. As where the Ebony Maw throws a trash can at you, that size 1, he still has to pay 3. Interesting. Also, once per turn, not any number of times. So, that immediately changes all math.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Also, Magneto generates a lot more power than Ebony. Yeah, he's the best. All right.
Also,
moving on, the other character that is in this category, Modok. He throws up to size 3 terrain within 3 long, and it costs 2, which is a very, very good stat line for a throw. Obviously, not being able to throw size 4 is going to greatly impact the overall rating. He got a 13.5, which is still very high on the list. Mm-hmm. It's just that Magneto and Ebony Maw are so much higher than anything else you can see. It's crazy. So 13.5. Ultron got a 10. Wasp got a 9.67. I don't know why. The Wasp is... I don't look at the tiny people. They're beneath me, so...
Literally.
Moving on.
Literally.
I know. I made a joke.
You did it.
That was my
Finally.
aspiration joke.
Yeah. Don't choke on
I got
them.
one in.
Don't choke on those.
All right, so the terrain-only people are nice, but the problem being that you can't affect positioning of models. But anyone who's played against Magneto and has suffered from the machine gun throwing is really unfortunate when your models just die. And you're just like, cool, I take 5. Well, I'll roll my dice. All right, I take 4. You're like, cool, you're still alive? Here's a trash can. You're like... I guess we're doing this, and you just keep rolling dice, watching your models slowly die.
Something to mention about the terrain. Oh, if I can mention it real fast, is I was looking at the whole ratings, and I think it's really cool and interesting after we've crunched these numbers that the terrain ratings, even though the grouping is small, the numbers are actually really high compared to the ones that can also throw, have options or just enemies. Like it's almost as if they purposely wanted that to be really difficult to do, to throw characters, and characters that only throw terrain get to do it with a more efficiency. It's almost like that they meant to do.
Can I tell you my observation on why this is true?
Oh, why's that?
It's a good point you bring up. Mm-hmm. So the reason that the terrain throwers have such a higher rating than the non-terrain throwers is because they lack the ability to affect positioning on the table, and also a throw that can target an enemy model can do damage to 2 models, not 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so, obviously, that is a more powerful effect, which means it should be valued higher, which means it should have less overall potency than attacks that cannot.
Right.
So I think that's why the terrain ratings are so much higher. So moving on, our next category is throw myself, because why not? This is the second time Green Goblin showed up on this list, and he only does so when he's really angry, but it's Green Goblin, Black Panther, and Gamora. For example, obviously them not being able to throw something a distance is going to lower their overall score. But Gamora and Black Panther, since they have the same ability, same size, is a rating of a 4. Green Goblins, however, though, costs more, but because he's larger and throws himself farther, it actually got a 9.
That's cool.
Which I found actually really surprising.
Yeah.
Because he comes from so much farther away, and him being a larger size means that the damage inflicted is going to be higher. I was really surprised that the formula told us that.
So Green Goblin is the king of throwing himself and bombs.
Yeah. Wild Abandon.
Well,
yeah, he's the king of both categories he's in.
That's actually really cool. I love that, because if you told somebody, like, what should the Green Goblin be good at? You would say, well, throwing bombs and probably himself into things. And you're like, yeah, that's what he does.
There's 5 categories of throwing, and he is the head with a noticeable lead in 2 of them, which just nobody would expect if you would just tell them that. Yeah. All right, so moving on. People that can only throw enemies but not terrain. Just so you guys know, this is basically only true of attacks. Only if an attack has a throw mechanic in it. So obviously that's going to skew some of these numbers, because the range on them is going to be mostly melee range, almost exclusively. Interesting thing, though, a lot of these attacks are not, guaranteed at all. In fact, very few of them happen regardless of the result of the dice. It is Kingpin with Hail of the King and I Am Groot are the 2 attacks. Oh, wait, there's one more. Shield Slam. Shield Slam on Captain America is the other one that guaranteed throws. Every other attack that throws is conditional, meaning it must deal damage, or you must roll a wild, or some other combination of dice. So winners of this category are not even close. Here, let me sort this so Parker can read it better. I Am Groot with a 12.33 is the highest. Which is pretty cool, because it has no maximum size throw, so I put it at a 4, because there's no size 5 people. It does cost 6, which means it's pretty crazy, but it throws medium. Pretty cool. Honorable mentions, Thor, Thanos, and Ronan all have a 10. Red Skull on his Unleash the Cube and Miles Morales both have a 9. And then there's a smattering of basically 8 to 5 down to Captain America, who actually has the lowest score because he can only throw size 2 stuff. And this brings us to the big heavy hitters, the most important category. Superpowers that affect terrain and enemies. So let me sort this by rating. Unsurprised, the winner in this category is Hulk with a 13. It only costs 2 power to throw a size 4 thing medium. That's pretty awesome. Next up is Thor and Black Dwarf, who have basically the exact same ability. It's just a 1 more expensive, so they each got a 12.67. And conveniently, Black Dwarf is the only 4-point character on this list. Or the list of the winners, anyway. So, like I said before, when you guys disagreed with me with Black Dwarf, he's got some really good stuff he does.
Oh my god.
Alright, next up is Vision and Kingpin, who both got a 10. Our worst throwers are tied equally with Beast, Valkyrie, Doc Ock, Storm, and Peter Parker. Obviously, Valkyrie generating more power per turn than the rest of them has a pretty big leg up in this category, though. Basically halves the cost. And then honorable mentions are Drax the Destroyer, Captain Marvel, and Venom are all in the middle of that category with Kingpin. So, the most important thing I pretty much notice is attacks that tend to throw. You should be really honoring the attacks that don't have a random effect to throw. Like Kingpin. Kingpin's ability to just move around and throw stuff whenever he wants is pretty awesome. He has an attack that throws people unconditionally, and he has a superpower that throws people unconditionally. Which means I think it's pretty believable for him to be able to throw 2 things off of a point, in addition to his Criminal Syndicate ability, like to go hold points. I think that's really important.
That's really cool. I also love that's kind of like, he's a sumo judo kind of guy, right? That's the kind of fighting he does in the comic books. It's like this
sumo judo.
Well, the original was very sumo, was like the style he was supposed to use, but it's become more of like a judo thing and a lot of modern storytelling of it. But he just uses his hands, he grabs things and crushes stuff, throws things away. Like, that's cool.
Nice. Do you guys have any questions about the throws? Any cool observations you guys have made?
Well, this has only deepened my love for Green Goblin. He is quickly. I need to put him on the table, I've decided, because he's quickly. Every time I look at his card, I notice more and more weird things, and I love how he is the champion of both throwing himself and bombs. I think that's awesome.
I'm very much in the same category on that. I've been looking at putting him in a Brotherhood list because the ability to destroy terrain on my opponent's turn is amazing.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And also it being reactionary, it's like, okay, well, if you have Magnetic Crush in your list and you have Green Goblin, they just can't stand near terrain ever. Like, it's just not an option. And so it makes it very hard for them to maneuver around the table. And then I was looking at putting in Rocket, who has booby traps. So if you move close to Rocket, you get bombed anyway. And then you can still make it a Brotherhood list at 17 points if you take Mystique and Toad. And then Mystique has the ability to just blow terrain up as well. And so you can't stand near terrain, period. And if you move towards their army, you just take damage. So I thought it was a funny list. I wanted to try it.
Mm-hmm. Also,
it
it's
would
worth
be
mentioning the
interesting.
Green Goblin. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeremy.
It would just be interesting with Magneto's faction ability to see all these characters with the amount of power they could get to actually pull this shit off. Because most of the time, all those things are like, yeah, I'd love to do it all, but you can't afford it. You can with that list.
Also, with Magneto putting down more terrain, you can just like, surprise, here's a piece of terrain right in the middle of their stuff, and then like, what's her face? Mystique just blows it up next activation, and everyone there takes 2 damage.
I was actually going to say something exactly about that, Jeremy. On Green Goblin's backside, he's actually a little self-power generator. Like, he just gains a random extra amount of power. So he actually does have the power to run his cool kit on the backside when he becomes unhinged. That's cool.
Unfortunately, on the backside, he doesn't have Trick or Treat anymore.
Right. He doesn't have Trick or Treat.
But yeah.
But when he throws himself...
He becomes a lot more aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, he throws himself, though.
I don't think you play to get to the backside. I don't think you're excited about it. But when you do, as soon as it happens, you're like, all right, here we go. He just starts zipping around, ping-ponging off of things. I love it.
Yeah, I think the amount of power you would end up, generating from the Ruins leadership ability would be pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think it's really important that Magneto makes terrain. If you're trying to make a terrain-based like army and you were interested in interacting with that way, Magneto, even without Brotherhood ability, is just wonderful, delicious gravy. On top of him just being able to facilitate a piece of terrain during the game and you're not reliant upon it being in a certain spot, he can just make it happen. That's super important. And from just a basic tactics point of view, you need to be able to have control over that. But he does, so there you go.
Alrighty, so that's going to wrap up our throws section. Basically, it's just a big data dump for throws. So, Parker, why don't you take us into your comic corner?
All right. So, comic corner today is actually based upon in honor of Brandon's intense and undying love for the Sorcerer Supreme. I wanted to showcase one of the coolest new takes on Doctor Strange. And I say new takes not because people are constantly doing new takes of him. Actually, Doctor Strange spent a 10-year drought of not having his own solo title from 1996. For 2006 to 2016. Sorry, I added an extra decade in there. But from 2006 to 2016, there was no such thing as a Doctor Strange comic. It didn't exist. And in 2016, 2 guys picked it back up. Jason Aaron, who's actually a local Kansas Cityan, he actually lives around here, he's written a number of different titles, just a smattering. He's written X-Men, Punisher, Wolverine, Avengers, Ghost Rider, but an artist by the name of Chris Bacalo also started working with him, and Chris has a very, very unique art style that you will not find anywhere else. One of the very first ways I ever saw him was in Generation X. He was one of the big writers of the original Generation X. He ostensibly, perhaps one of the reasons why it was such a big hit at the time, is he came in with this new super dark art style. He loves creating big, huge open spaces and then filling them. He has his colorist filled it with black. A lot of his comics have black filling the page, but it still manages to evoke a lot of emotion. And bringing that kind of, it's not really a gothic style, but this really intense, open art style to Doctor Strange is great. And Aaron does a fantastic job of writing a series. So if you have not checked out the solo Doctor Strange title that started in 2016, the first one is called Way of the Weird, and that's kind of ostensibly, if you type in Doctor Strange Way of the Weird, you'll get the whole series, although there is several now graphic novels accumulating all of them, but Way of the Weird is how it starts. The story begins with a really cool take on Doctor Strange. It's similar to his movie persona, where he feels, I am a doctor and my job is to go and help people with magic maladies. And so that's kind of the character that you meet. He's a little bit snarkier than the old school, kind of Morpheus, Doctor Strange. Like, it's not that character. He's much more snarky and down to earth. But he meets a brand new foe called the Empiricool. And their shtick is they believe basically in a universe without magic. All the dimensions magic free. They believe it's a taint on the universe and they will destroy it. And they destroy it with superior technology that's in purely anti-magic technology. They come to our dimension, and Doctor Strange is the only thing that stands between them and the destruction of all magic on Earth. And the point is, in the very first issues, the Empirical win. And almost all magic is stripped from Earth, full stop. And so Doctor Strange has to figure out how he's going to beat a foe without being the master of the mystic arts, because there are no more mystic arts in the earthly universe. So, of course, how he fixes his problem and how he solves that issue, and then all the others that come up in the series are fantastic. So, if you've never read a Doctor Strange comic, but you want to see a really cool modern take on it with just absolutely fascinating art, check out Doctor Strange: The Way of the Weird. You will not be disappointed. A really cool look at Doctor Strange.
Alrighty. So basically what you're saying is they come face to face with the Master of the Mystic Arts.
They do. And he has an axe. In the comic...
Doctor Strange has an axe?
Oh, yeah. So basically, in the comics, there's no more magic, right? He can't use the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. He doesn't have one. But he's got a magical axe. So basically what he finds out is that the empirical technology basically saps magical energy from the ether, like it takes it from the space, the kind of stuff that just floats around everywhere. That's what it takes it from. The kind of mystical plane that surrounds everything, the astral realm. That's what it just nullifies that. But it doesn't do very well with physical items that are enchanted. It can't really sap them as well or as easily. So in order to fight them, he takes an awesome ragtag crew. It's very much as a montage where he's like, son of a bitch, I'm in, where he does a whole bunch of random mystical characters in the Marvel Universe, and they go around.
Strangest 13.
Yeah, and they go around and just collect every magical item from the Marvel Universe they possibly can. And Strange's favorite go-to thing is this magical axe, and he chops a lot of stuff, and so. That magical axe, that hatchet that he has in this, even in modern Doctor Strange, sometimes he still wields it on covers and in certain action panels and things. It's become a little signature weapon of his, along with the cape and the Eye of Agamotto. Now he has this mystical axe. Is this thing that he uses, which is cool. Just like it was a cool art choice, a cool pick for him. So it's a really cool comic to watch Doctor Strange not be the master of the mystic arts and still try to do his job, because that's what he sees it is. In this series, it's not so much like a calling. It wasn't a destiny. It's just his job. He's the doctor. He has to go fix it. So it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool. All right, so that's going to bring us into our final segment today. Is Dr. Stephen Strange overpowered?
Yes. Next.
So basically, all the lists I've been building lately end up being Doctor Strange and his buddies, and they win. So, is Doctor Strange too strong? Does he need to be brought down a peg, or is he just right? like A-okay, just right. So primarily, the problem we've been running into is his defensive abilities, the ability to add defense dice to other characters to make up for any flaws they have or overcome strong attacks, in combination with his ability to heal them, and then his very consistent dice activity with his ability to reroll stuff, his action economy with the time stone. He's obviously very expensive, but he's been very worth it in pretty much every game I've played. So I think all the problem combinations we've been coming up with, like Doctor Strange and Magneto, Doctor Strange and Captain America, Doctor Strange and basically everything else, has been very good. And so initially we thought Magneto was broken, but it was just because I had just started playing Doctor Strange too. So now we're worried that Doctor Strange is broken. So
I think it's...
Jeremy, why don't you tell me why you don't like playing against Doctor Strange and Magneto?
Oh, God. It's just horrible. That wasn't the question I was ready to answer. You kind of threw me off on that one.
Okay. I'll start with a different one then.
I'm just...
How about Parker, what were you going to say?
I was actually going to say, one of the things about his points, when you look at Doctor Strange and his points, is that if you told me there were two characters in the game, and one of them was going to have these awesome attacks that he does that can pull things and move things and completely shut people down and rob them of activations, and he was always going to have the power to use all those attacks, I'd be like, wow, that's obviously a 4-point character at least. And then if you told me there's another character that can come with him that in the same faction that will give anybody defense dice and anybody heals and will always have the power to do that and activate twice, then I would go, okay, well, that seems like a 4-point character, obviously, at least, right? And then they put them both onto one character and made them cost, 4 plus 4, and that's 8. So I don't know how unfair it is to have a character that can do all that cost 8 points, but it is unfair when that character costs 6 points or 7 points. Because if I describe those two characters and I just took away, the only thing I took away was the ability to activate twice from one of them, then instantly somebody will go, oh, absolutely not. There's no way those characters can be 3 points. 2 3-point characters standing on top of one another cannot be doing what Doctor Strange does. And that's one of the reasons why I think he's got too many rules, or his rules are a little bit overtuned. I think he was giving too many things. I think any 2 3-point characters with that combinations of things would not be 3 points. And that's why I struggle with him, because his list is just too long.
Okay, so that's actually a really interesting argument. The 2 characters can't do what he does. I think that's a really interesting point, and an interesting way to look at it. Because more often than not, it's been the reverse is true, where it's like, well, when Hulk first came out, we're like, man, Hulk's really strong. Well, it's just because we didn't know how to play against him yet. Like, we didn't know how to take advantage of his weaknesses. And so, but it was putting 2 3-point characters on the table is always better than taking Hulk, right? Like, does anyone disagree? Like, right. Valkyrie and Drax, like, how is Hulk better than this? It's like, well, he's not. He can't be. Like, Hulk's not that good. Mm-hmm. So, like, not only are you actually gaining noticeable amounts of hit points, but you're getting the 2 days health stoppers in there as well. Like, it takes way longer to kill those 2 characters. And even more is true when you break it down again and do 3 2-point characters. Mm-hmm. And even then again, it's still harder to kill them. And so my concern with the game long-term has always been that I was worried that the cheap characters were going to get too good, or there's just going to be too many of them, and you were going to see, like, model bloat, and you're just going to see people taking lots of cheap characters. And I think the reverse is actually becoming true. They noticed that the expensive characters were bad because our trend was Hulk and Thanos, and I think both of those characters at 6 points are pretty subpar. Thanos obviously gets different when you start going up in points, but then he's, costs more. So yeah, it's just interesting. I think they might have been trying to correct that with Doctor Strange, or it might have just been a small oversight. And also, anyone who hasn't played Doctor Strange with the Time Stone, it's a completely different character than without. The problem with this kit being he needs to generate a lot of power to do everything he wants, and the Time Stone costs power to use, but it really doesn't, because it's giving you 99% of the time it's giving you an attack that you wouldn't have been able to make, and you're going to make up a lot of the power you spend on it with that attack, and you're getting to deal damage. So it ends up being better in the long run. Jeremy, do you have anything to add so far?
Everything you both have said is correct. I've always thought of him as, would I take 2 4-point characters over him and those kind of things. I just can't imagine having all those abilities, because no matter what, even 2 4-point characters never have enough power to do all the things they want to do. Whereas Strange can do just as much, almost, as 2 fully equipped 4-point characters, and also defend his entire force. Like, it's ridiculous. And God help you if he's in Avengers, because he basically does everything for free, because when you activate to do anything, he gets more power. Like, it's bananas. The amount of power he creates, the amount of defense he gives your army, and the to me, I think the one over the top thing that if they were going to take anything off and I would feel okay about playing it again, get rid of his healing. There's no reason he should be fucking healing.
The healing did feel a little over the top when you look at Wong and Wong does healing. Like, I was a little surprised that Strange did the healing. And that usually feels like the insult to injury point, is when it's like if you play him with Captain America, like, not only is Strange not going to die, but neither is Captain America, because I mean, Captain America is going to heal 9 damage throughout a game on average. Like, how is that? How are you going to kill him? Like, he's just never going to die.
We've talked many times about... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the piece of it that people will say is like, look, you've got this ball of hate and it's just together and they can't run out and do objectives and stuff. What people fail to see is you're taking 3 shots from chains. You're probably going to be stunned. You're probably dropping objectives, and he's just going to collect them. It's like any other army. Like, he drags you out and will collect the shit that you've collected. So you're no longer on points because he's moved you, and you've dropped whatever you've collected, and he's collecting it. So the whole idea of just spread out and take objectives, it doesn't work that way at all. That's not how it's played. And if he has a time stone, he can then just walk over there and do all his attacks. Like, it allows him to deal with the only thing that should be able to beat a bunch of points wrapped into one character, which is you have 2 to 3 characters instead. That doesn't do it. That's not enough. That's my opinion.
The other thing I don't like about his healing, or the topic of healing, is the fact that field dressing exists, because the fact is he does have 6 health. Like, that's one thing he does have, is he has 6 health. Yeah. And he can give himself extra dice, and he can reroll. That's a lot of layers of protection. Yeah. But he also can still just die. Like, 2 attacks can down him. He's only got 6 health. So since he's only got 6 health,
he's also very vulnerable to throws.
Right. So as soon as you get him, 6 damage on him, which there's lots of ways in the game to do that. As soon as you do that, he's dazed. But what you've basically done is you've made him invulnerable until he wants to stand back up. Because as soon as you have field dressing, because as soon as he does that, if he has anybody around him who can spend 4, they're going to do field dressing, and God forbid, because here's the thing, you want to get him down before he activates, on turn 4 or whatever, and you're like, okay, I finally got the situation. I've got tons of power because he dazed me twice, and so I got 2 characters, a lot of power. Here we go. I focus on him. I do something cool. I blow some tactics cards. I downed him. Great. Perfect, because he hasn't activated yet. He'll lose his turn, and then your opponent with Strange goes, I'll pass. Okay, most of your guys have gone. All right, this guy will activate field dressing Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, he doesn't have to activate, right? It doesn't have to be the person activated, right? Isn't that
no?
Mm-hmm. So he's like, okay, field dressing. Doctor Strange stands up and immediately heals himself, and he kills 3 things. Go. You're like, oh.
So I'm just sitting here actually, and I'm pondering to myself why Doom's Prophecy is on the restricted list, and it might be Doom Prophecy is on the restricted list combined with field dressing. Like, maybe that's why it made it on. We never thought about that, because being able to play Doom Prophecy on Hulk with 1 hit point left, or like Captain America with 1 hit point left, or whoever, and then they daze you, and you're like, all right, cool, my turn. I play field dressing and immediately activate said character, and you're like, oh yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was just something. Okay, so we're gonna sidebar this for the end, but well, actually, no, let's just talk about it now. It'll just make more sense. Field dressing needs to be restricted in some way. I understand it's on the restricted list. That's not enough. Field dressing is not close to the best tactics card. Like, not close. My list was so bad until I added field dressing to it, and now it's stupid good. Like, it needs to be, like, the restricted list needs to be, you can play 1 card off the restricted list. And the restricted list needs to be field dressing, and every other card not field dressing. I don't know. Like, it's so strong to be able to activate a character that's been dazed. Because it doesn't just prevent you from losing the activation, it also protects the character and your opponent to be able to do stuff. Like, let's say they attack you and daze you. Well, they can't, like, move you. They can't stagger you. They can't do anything else to you. Mm-hmm. Now that you've been dazed, it's like a protective shield around you until you play field dressing, which is super, like, crazy strong. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know how to say anything else about it without just repeating myself, but, like, that card is so crazy good. Like, if any card needed to be banned, I'd much rather play against drop off than field dressing.
You could change. I think one very simple change to field dressing is if someone had to play it on
active character.
I was going to say only the active character could play it on someone else. So then you couldn't immediately activate. Like, I couldn't say, all right, this character with 4 power gives Strange stands up and now Strange activates. Like, if it was this character with 4 power uses a part of their activation, or during their activation they make Doctor Strange stand up, but Doctor Strange does not get to activate immediately. He's got to sit there with 1 health for a moment. And so that gives your opponent the chance. Now, you can still do it strategically where nobody has the opportunity to hurt Strange, but it could
potentially, but not always.
Right. But there's a good,
because
there's a chance where I as a player go, okay, I know my opponent has that card, so I'm not going to activate I'm going to make sure to activate people who don't have the ability to continue to affect Strange, to make him scared of playing it. That gives you actually the ability to counterplay the card and nullify it first to a certain degree. And
well, it's actually what I was trying to say, though. Because Strange is such an expensive character, it tends to be that he has priority. And if he has priority, it's very likely, especially if you daze Strange, that you are activating last as the opponent of Strange. Yeah. So if you activate last as the opponent of Strange, he never has an opportunity to play field dressing without you being able to attack him.
But because of his power, we've talked about all the ways that he can do way more than it looks like. If Strange stands up and just dazes that person, right? Or Strange stands up and pushes that person away, moves them away so they can't attack because they're only a melee character.
No, but that's what I'm saying with your proposed change, where the active player would have to play field dressing. There would more often than not be an opportunity to play it without the risk of them being dazed again.
Oh, so you're saying it's a good thing? My idea is a good idea?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes field dressing dramatically worse, like way worse, which might be fair, but yeah, I think it would actually take it from broken to not played. I don't think it'd be unplayable. I just think people wouldn't play it.
I think it would be,
unless you had some way to protect that character, like a bodyguard type situation.
Exactly. So people could play it with a bodyguard, or people would play it specifically with characters like Ronin, for example, because Ronin gets a benefit from standing back up. Sure. So it would be a tactics card as opposed to a no duh. Put this in a list because you have 6 point.
At that point, I think you should just ban it.
Yeah.
If that was the case, like if you're gonna go that far, you should just ban the card.
And I mean,
and make a new card that's not as bad.
Yeah.
And just sitting here talking about it again, I mean, we've seen it done many, many, many times at this point. Like, not having that in your list as a tactics card's a bad idea. Like, why would that not be an auto include?
I don't know what you're doing if it's not in your 8. Like, I think you're actively playing the game wrong. This might be the only card where I think you can play the game wrong by not taking it. It's so powerful. And, like, the fact that it's on the restricted list is not an argument. Like, oh, I want to take Brace instead. It's like, you know what's really good about keeping your guys from losing their activation? Field dressing. Like, why aren't you taking this card? Like, there's no argument against it.
Uh-huh. So, I mean...
Like, if you could take 5 drop-offs that might be an argument to not take field dressing, but it's still not. You would still take the 1 field dressing. I would take 5 field dressings. Like, why is this card so stupid? And so I think that's part of the problem, is that when you take a very elitist list and they want to stand next to each other, like Strange and his partner usually do, whoever that person is, it makes field dressing that much stronger. So it's like a compounding effect. Because if you go in against Magneto and Strange, or Thanos and Strange, or wherever your combination is, who do you attack? The answer is almost always Strange, because he's usually the easiest to kill, because he has weaknesses where your other super character might not. And so you go in, you throw stuff at Strange, you try and get him down, you actually succeed in dazing him, and then the first thing that happens is the other guy, before activating, plays field dressing, you activate Strange, he heals himself, and kills you. And you're like, awesome, I'm so glad I took a turn. Like, you've invalidated everything I did. And it just makes the fact that he has healing on top of that is just so frustrating.
Yeah, and that's the other bit, is not only are you're going to have to expend resources to get Strange down, but he will expend almost no resources to stand back up and continue being awesome. Because you gave him power to knock him down, so now he stands back up even stronger, heals himself, and keeps going. That's one of the reasons why I think, if you think about Strange in a vacuum, without the stones and without that card, and you look at his defensive side of his kit, you think, okay, well, he's going to be consuming a lot of power all the time. He's going to have to make choices between giving people extra dice and healing them. And yes, he can heal himself, so he's a strong regenerator, but he has to use power, unlike other characters that just get it. And he only has 6 health, so, you can knock him down. He doesn't have infinity defense, so he can definitely be knocked down. And so the fact that he can regenerate is curbed, right? It's balanced. And if you look at just that, you go, okay, 6-point character. But then when you give him either stone to give him enough power all the time to always do anything, and then you add in that tactics card, it just takes away the 2 things that you try to balance him on. It takes away the fact that he doesn't have power to do everything he wants, and it takes away the fact that you can just daze him to negate his healing, and that is that's bad. It's wrong. It's a bad idea. He's broken.
So how about this then? So I want to say a couple things, actually. And sorry if I'm cutting you off, Jeremy. But first thing, I do not think we will see erratas in this game. I don't think it's what the company wants to do. I think we're almost as likely to see a second edition before we see erratas happen. I think we're way more likely to see bans followed by effective reprints. And part of the reason for that, if people don't understand why, is they want the game to be legal out of the box. And so if you go to an event and you're playing a card, you want the card to do what the card says it does. Like, that's why Drop-Off didn't get errated, it got banned. And so we'll probably see a new card that's very similar to Drop-Off that comes out around the time of Cable. So, second point is, I don't really want to include field dressing as the problem with Doctor Strange. I get that there's a really good synergy. But that's like saying Thor's overpowered because of Drop-Off. Like, that wasn't really true. It was really Drop-Off was the problem. And so I agree that it synergizes incredibly well because of the healing. But, I mean, it's just as equally, you could just say, like, Brace is overpowered because he could have lived at 1 with Brace. And so, like, I don't think that's a fair argument to say, like, well, the best tactics card and maybe the best character and then the best Infinity Stone combined to make the best characters. Like, well, no shit. Like, right. Obviously that's true. And so it just feels like a bad argument.
No, I would say...
I do agree. I do absolutely agree with you that it's super overpowered when you include field dressing.
Yeah.
But I just want to know if, like, the base character is too strong.
And I think that I guess there's my point right there, which I don't think the base character, the 6-point character, Doctor Strange, I think he might be balanced, and I think the big balancing point is the 5. Sorry, 5. I always say 6 because that's the way I always picture him in my mind. But yeah, the base 5-point character, Doctor Strange, I think is probably balanced because he doesn't get all the power in the world, and he doesn't get he has 6 health. He has 6 health, so you can knock him down. However, I still stand by my original point, which is if you had a 3-point character and a 2-point character stand on their heads, and they had all those rules listed on their cards, and you split them in half and put them on 2 cards, you would be, well, I'm taking this 5-point module every time, always, because it seems impossibly strong. So Um,
I actually don't know that that's necessarily true anymore, though. If you look at 5-point Strange, because 5-point Strange doesn't really do that much damage. He's mostly support, right?
Mhm.
He's support and like grease. And I would say that like Shuri and Wong as a 5-point module are fairly comparable to Strange. They do a lot of the same things. You have the healing, you have the protectiveness with the rerolls mechanic, and you have the repositioning your enemy models with Shuri's gun blasts. And she probably won't do quite as much damage as Strange, but it's going to be, fairly close because she's doing very consistent 1 point of damage, where Strange is doing very consistent 1.5 points of damage. Like, I think it's fairly comparable.
so it's a better analogy to say that the 7-point Strange with the Time Stone is
Now that I think is pretty uncomparable.
Right.
I can't think of a 7-point combination that would be
able to do all the things he
equal
does. Yeah.
or similar.
Yeah.
So because at that point you're not only increasing the damage, you're increasing it by like a noticeable factor.
Right.
Because the random chance of spiking becomes a lot less random when you increase the number of attacks.
And he
You're
also
not even-
functionally gets to. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, this conversation hasn't even got into his tactics card. His fucking portal
the
card.
pentagram?
That
Yeah, we
is
talked
the
about
fucking
that.
But again, though,
stupidest-
I actually don't think that's actually very relevant because Doctor Strange in the incarnation we're talking about him in is not in Defenders.
Mhm.
Because we're talking about him with like Brotherhood and Avengers, which gives him a lot of extra power. When you play him in Defenders, he can't afford to shield everybody because his faction ability not only doesn't give him power, it increases his power output because he ends up spending power for the faction ability. And so because of that, I actually think it's the worst Doctor Strange. You only do it when the other characters in your list need that ability really badly.
the worst version of Doctor Strange. What a joke.
Yeah, the worst version of Doctor Strange is a teleporting one for
It's
your
still
whole
good.
list.
Yeah.
Do we need to bring up Maul again? We need to bring him up
Ebony Maw.
when we talk about worst versions of things?
I mean, Ebony Maw and Doctor Strange are basically the same character. I mean, they're definitely similar in power level and effectiveness. The fact that Doctor Strange not only has more hit points than Ebony Maw, but has more survivability in every possible way than Ebony Maw, just tells you everything you need to know.
I will say also from a comic book point of view, I really liked Doctor Strange whenever I read him basically in the original 5-point version without even thinking about him in Stones. When I just read his card, I was like, he does like everything, but that's the way magic works in fantasy worlds. It only does everything. So like the fact that he only does everything at first, I was like, yeah, but he's he's the master of the mystic arts, right? He's gotta do everything. And I was fine
the whole
with it.
point
totally
of a
fine.
wizard
And then,
is that they can do everything, right?
right.
Like that's from a conceptual standpoint, that's what a wizard does, everything.
Right. It's mechanically in the game when you add stones to him, soul to get whatever you want to happen, or time because you want him to also be a combat monster. That's when it starts to bend and the game doesn't work. And also, like I think, let's say, I don't think you ban stones or change stones or even errata field dressing. It's that that combination on him gets really silly. And they're all good cards by themselves. They're all good upgrades by themselves. But all those things on him they feel oppressive. They feel like negative play experiences. It's really hard to get excited about playing against Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Like when I see
So,
Magneto on the board,
how about this?
I'm excited. To
Actually,
play
hold
against
on.
him, but
Yeah, actually, Jeremy, go ahead.
My thought on the whole situation, he feels like Doctor Strange on the table. I mean, he's one of the few models. Magneto feels like Magneto. I mean, they do all kinds of crazy cool stuff. I'll give him that. I mean, as a game creator and a designer and all that, some of the shit is like, how are you going to make Hulk seem like Hulk? I mean, he doesn't seem like Hulk on the tabletop at all. Like, he takes damage and throws shit, but he dies, so that's not really the Hulk we know. My point is this. They made a really cool character. Great. Kudos. Add a couple extra points on that guy and see how good he actually is. Like, if he was 8 or 9 points, like, you can make him like Thanos. Like, here's a 9-point Strange is badass, and you'd go, he's badass, but I can't take anything else. I probably would only do that for fun every once in a while, if ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but at 7 points? Oh my god. I mean, it fixes it if you just make it, you can't take anything else, and it just becomes that sort of list. I mean, because he feels like that. It feels like if I paid a shitload of points, I want a shitload of actions. I want everything for all those points. And you could get there.
Do you think he does enough to be 6 points natively?
Yes. He has heal.
Does he do enough to be 7 points?
That's questionable. I mean, does defense equal tons of points and power equal tons of points? No.
So in this game, I can tell you after looking at a lot of the numbers across the different characters that I've been compiling, they value damage above all else. If you do damage, you cost points generally, which is why Rocket Raccoon is so stripped down to the bare bones. And he doesn't actually do crazy amounts of damage. Like, he's fairly comparable to a lot of 3-point characters, but look at what he paid to get there. Mm-hmm. They definitely value damage above all else. And a second most to damage is usually mobility. And so, looking across the game, he's not mobile, and he doesn't do a lot of damage. He's fairly consistent, but that's just because his average number of dice he rolls, he gets to re-roll them a lot. And so, it's not increasing the damage, just making it more consistent. So, him being equivalent to a 6-point character, I think it's the problem is we just don't know what a 6-point character is yet, because Hulk was obviously a miss way low. Like, way low. Uh-huh. Hulk is not justifiably 6 points. Thanos,
first point of evidence.
Thanos is really interesting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, She-Hulk. Look at She-Hulk. Like, is Strange in line with She-Hulk? He certainly looks like it at face value. Like, I would be surprised if she doesn't come out at a similar power level to him. The thing that I'm worried about, honestly, is what happens when you start getting the rest of the 6-point models that are justifiably costed and start putting those with him. Like, because I think Magneto and She-Hulk look like about what a 6-point character should probably look like. They have a couple holes, but on the whole, like as a rounded character, they've got a couple flaws, but they're very good at multiple things. As where a lot of 4-point characters usually do one thing really well.
There's any
I'm trying to think.
Any number of things they could have done and not gave him. And it could have been one of, I mean, there's no reason that the chain should move you. Like, that would be okay. He'd probably be okay if his shit didn't move you.
Yeah, the being able to reposition people is definitely really strong. I think I'm in agreement with Parker that the line in the sand probably should have been the healing. And at least if he gets to keep the healing, it shouldn't be 3. It should be like 1 or 2.
Because 3 is crazy.
3 is a lot. Like,
it is
3
a ton,
makes it,
man.
like, that's because between giving out extra defense dice and healing, he's erasing like entire activations with like 4 or 5. Well, if he's in Avengers, it's 3 power. If it's not in Avengers, it's 5 power.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's kind of like Hulk and we just haven't landed on how to deal with it yet. But I'm definitely in agreement. He certainly feels high of 5 points. And it's probably actually a fair character at 5 points, like we were saying earlier. Because 5-point character, like Modok, is really, really good. Like, I think he's fairly comparable to Modok, but everyone agrees Modok is like the gold standard of 5-point characters. The problem is Modok can't take the time stone. Modok, while being able to benefit from field dressing, doesn't like abuse it as much as he does. Because the problem with field dressing is Strange gets to play field dressing too. And he can field dressing somebody and then heal them. Which is, again, completely different situation than if Modok field dressing somebody.
Yeah.
And
so all
Modok,
of those things combined.
Yeah. Modok always felt
we're
like
taking
cheating anyway.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. It feels like cheating. And so what happens when you put Modok with Doctor Strange, and Modok's rolling 4 defense dice with his psionic face shield, and then he is, you're moving people into range of Modok, so Modok can throw shit at them, and then Modok's moving them again. Like, remember that one game I played with Strange and Modok? It was just like, yeah, I don't need an affiliation. This is fine. Like, oh my god, what do you do? So I definitely agree that field dressing plus Time Stone plus Strange is definitely overpowered. But we're taking maybe the 3 best things of their categories and adding them together. So I think that would just generally be true of anything, right? Like, we took a character, played them out of faction for the best faction ability, and then we took the best upgrade card we could put on them, and then added on top of that the best tactics card we could play in that list. Like, you'd expect that to be overpowered, right? Because you're taking all of the best things and condensing it into one point and saying, the hell with whatever else I have. I'm making this thing broken.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I agree. I think that's 100% true. The fact that you get that for 1 crisis card and 1 character slot, well, 2 character slots there. So 2 character slots, 1 crisis card, and 7 points out of your roster. I think that's when it starts to, because it is not hard to do, 2 3s and a 4 for your other, for your other characters to make 17
Well,
points.
I just want to say real quick that I think it was very intentional he's only in the faction he leads,
Right.
which is not the faction he wants to play in.
Right.
And so it's not just you're adding a 7-point character to another list, it's an out-of-faction 7-point model every time. So that means you need at least 1 more in-faction character, and if you're playing a 4-character list, you need all 3 of those other characters to be faction.
Right.
And so that actually matters a lot in list building, but that's all I want to say.
So, but I think finding a combination within 10 points is very doable. I don't think there's many factions in the game, except for the ones who don't have all their releases right now. I don't think there are many factions in the game that can't find a 10-point version of their list that they're comfortable with. And so, because of that, some combination of 10 points being good enough, I think I actually don't think he can be more expensive, because I actually don't think his kit is worth 1 more point. I actually think it's a problem with the kit. I actually think it's just like one of the rules, probably healing. That's the thing. And I don't think one of those rules, especially the healing one, is worth a whole point in Crisis Protocol. I don't think it is. So I don't know if you can make him an extra point. I don't know if that fixes the problem at all, actually. I think they just printed too many things with the stuff around him in the game currently. And he's a huge outlier. Just enormous outlier.
Well, and he's done something that they've openly said, the designers of the game, like they care about play experience. And I can tell you, every game that Doctor Strange is in, and he's kind of lined up this kit, is absolutely miserable. It's a complete, draining experience trying to figure out how to untangle this shit. Whilst they'll still...
It is, because you
have to do it properly.
I can see it because I've played it the most, and so I know how to beat it, and I see people trying to figure it out, and it's not complicated if you work backwards. Like, the problem is, most, little maze puzzles you play on, in coloring books, it's easiest if you start at the end and go backwards. And so if you find out what you want to accomplish, and then just work backwards, you can figure out what you need to do. The problem is, it's still incredibly difficult. It's not that it's complicated, it's just difficult, because you're at the mercy of the dice. And part of it makes that a little bit easier, because if you get the god rolls, it's easy. But the problem is, the math is so against you that it's just so unlikely to happen. It's rolling boxcars is not complicated, but you have to actually do it. And one time it's going to be really easy. The rest of the time it's going to be impossible. And so you have to go in, scalpel out Strange, somehow prevent field dressing from happening, and then do it again, because guess what? On the backside, he's just as dangerous. And so, what do you do? It's you have to get it done twice, and you're going to pay for doing it the first time. Really bad. Because he's going to have everything right there in front of him. He's not going to need to move. He's not going to need to do anything. He's just going to unload on you. What if it was... So I think I agree with Parker. I think the point increase would not accomplish much, because the difference of, let's say the optimal list was, I'm playing Avengers, so you have Captain America and 2 3-point Avengers. That's the 17-point standard. Is, so what, you take, Hawkeye and Iron Man, instead you take Hawkeye and Black Widow. I don't think that changes the list much.
It does
It's
not.
either extremely prohibitively expensive, or it's doesn't matter. That's basically where we land. And so it's the functionality that's the problem. And obviously, I think the best example I can give is an old 40K reference from 5th edition 40K. The Imperial Guard Army book was fine, but there was 5 things in it that were just a little too cheap. And when all you take is the stuff that's too cheap, you run into problems because everything is undercosted at that point, and it just ripples through it. It just compounds on itself. And so the Time Stone and field dressing and another elite character and Doctor Strange is too much. And I think the healing is, the most obvious way that we would go about fixing, but we know errata is not going to happen. So I think we're just going for a yes, no, is it too strong? And I think we've kind of landed on, well, Strange in a vacuum is not broken, but Strange with everything you can possibly give him might be, and probably is.
And you don't have to sell out everything to do it. Like, you're not selling out every slot and every point to do it.
Well, it's not the slots in the roster. It's the squad you end up with. And I think you do notice it. Like, I feel it. Like, when I go to put the list together, it's always, I have 2 characters and 2 people that are going to try and lose slow enough to keep me in this game. And that's my list. Like, that's every time I play. Because, like I said, like, if I told you my list was Captain America, Iron Man, Hawkeye, and another character, you're like, well, this is going to be an easy matchup. Until you see it's Super Strange, and he's just running around mind-blowing people, and you're like, I don't know what to do about this. He's just being Doctor Strange, not taking damage, healing all the damage, and, like, dealing all the damage.
So then your other character with Doctor Strange is Magneto. So back to that situation.
So the Brotherhood list is a 3-character list with Sabretooth and Magneto. You can't tell me a 3-character list isn't sacrificing their list.
They're not. What it is you're playing that entire
You're lying
thing
to my face, Jeremy.
That is such a fucking joke. Like, it has more offensive output than anything. It has more defensive output.
I tell you what, Jeremy.
It's ridiculous.
I'm excited to make this interesting. How about that? How about next time we play, you bring your normal criminal list, I'll bring the Brotherhood Doctor Strange list, and we'll swap lists, and we'll see how it goes.
No!
I'll play against my list, and we'll just see how it goes.
No. No, thank you.
If you're so confident it's so strong, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Parker, I want the record to show Jeremy is afraid of playing my list.
Look, there's only a few that can hold the Infinity Gauntlet. It killed Iron Man, so look, I'm not
but
interested.
Think of all the work he got done.
All the problems.
He wasn't wrong.
It only took about 8 seconds.
I will actually say this. This is actually one of those soft skill things, one of those like protections in the game that if you sell out to a 3-model list, or if you agree to play Doctor Strange at 7 points of the Time Stone and field dressing, you have to know how to do that, because you are putting your eggs in a basket, right? It is a game softener only if you are capable of making it so, right? And a game softener by definition is one that just works automatically, right? It just automatically makes the game easier to win, and it's more forgiving. And I don't know if Doctor Strange is actually that forgiving a character to play. He's not an autopilot character. He doesn't just sit there. You have to be really active, and even though it might seem really obvious for people who played the game a bunch what he's going to do, I could tell you that there's one of the reasons why it's a negative play experience is that people trying to figure him out. The first time you see somebody pilot him well, and you're like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have done anything. I never had a chance. I never even had my car. You know, the Fast and Furious reference. Like, I never had a chance.
You never had your car.
Like, I never actually had a chance to win this game, is the way you feel after you watch somebody play Doctor Strange well. And I don't know if you just pick up Doctor Strange and that happens the first time. I think you'd have to play a lot. Brandon, maybe you could tell us, did you feel like that happened the very first time you picked him up? That it just went?
No, it definitely didn't the first time I played him, and then I didn't play him again for a long time. But when I played him with Magneto, it clicked the first time. It wasn't as deadly as we ended up making it with the adjustments I made and the changes in play I had, but it was 90% of the list we have now. It was just like, when I originally did it, I was so afraid of Doctor Strange dying that I didn't put him anywhere relevant. And so my opponent was able to basically just ignore him. And then I was just playing defenders back then. And the rest of my list slowly crumbled over time. And Strange wasn't able to impact the game enough. Where when I played Magneto, obviously having 3 characters, that's not an option. So it kind of forced me to just throw myself into the fire. And it worked out really well.
As it turns out, he's fireproof.
But
apparently he had Endure Elements cast. So,
Jeremy, what were you going to say? You were starting to say something.
Hit us with some knowledge.
So, just like any other tabletop game, you hope to be playing someone who is as good or better than you, or you won't get any better. That's my opinion of most competitive things. So, you play a lot of games. You play a lot more than I do, and so you're pretty decent at it. And you're playing with some of the strongest shit that this game has to offer right now. And I can't think or figure out a way to play in a way that does anything about what you're playing. And that's what makes me feel like Doctor Strange, like that shit is just overpowered. Like there's something going on there. And I mean, we haven't even been able to talk about it together and say, okay, the Achilles heel is this. You can't dislodge it with the way the dice are in this game.
I'm confident with my original opinion that we came up with, like the strategy to beat it. I'm pretty sure that's still the answer.
I still think turn 4, that none of those characters are alive, or at least they're almost all dead. So then you walk away with the victory on 5 and 6.
If you've played it right, turn 4 is when most of your characters are undazing. And so that should actually be your rebound turn.
Perhaps. Again, we've talked about it, and we think that perhaps, maybe. Just maybe.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
1 in a million.
You're
You've got
you're
a chance.
walking a knife edge, so like you can make 0 mistakes with this strategy. But I think if you do it right, I think like that's basically what happened in the game we just played. Like we have video evidence of you beating me with this list. And you played unaffiliated. Like there's no argument against what happened. Like, I got beat. Like, you beat the list.
And what did it take? I had to roll 8 fucking wounds.
I mean, just because you dealt 8 damage on 3 separate attacks does not mean that's the only reason you won.
I gleamed the cube like several times in that
Just
game.
because I went 5 activations without causing damage with an attack does not mean it was dice related.
Hey, Miles 8 is fast.
That was far. That was a mile away from the worst dice game I've had. Let alone even on camera. Like that was a not great dice game, but it wasn't atrocious. It was just a little unfortunate. Like I had 1 turn of bad dice is really what happened. And it came back. It wasn't like I was unable to do anything.
Yeah, and you damn near still took it from me.
It was close. Because if Zemo comes up short, the score is 13-8, and the next turn I don't table you, but I think I score at least 6. And so I get to 14. It's just the question is, can Zemo survive to score 3? That's the question. I don't think he does. Because I had Zemo, Doctor Strange and Hawkeye were going to go get him.
Actually, Zemo would have turned into a Ghost Rider when you killed him. Like, that was the, like...
No, when I killed Ghost Rider. I was never going to kill Ghost Rider.
You son of a bitch.
That was never the plan. No, he's going to live to the end of the game. Well, until the other 2 are dead.
Yeah.
I know how that works.
No.
Again, don't get gotcha'd by your opponent. You know how their cards work. Way easier to kill Zemo than Ghost Rider twice.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a random situation and a weird version of the game, and Ghost Rider basically fucking owned you. Like, that's all.
Ghost Rider definitely kicked my ass. I definitely made some priority mistakes, like choosing to go after Ronin instead of Ghost Rider. Mm-hmm. I should have just gone after Ghost Rider first. But then by the time I realized my mistake, my dice didn't let me fix the problem, and then I suffered from it. And then I made a mistake not playing Medpack, and then you punished me for it. Because if I play Medpack on Cap, it's a different situation. Because I could have just gone and contested.
Yeah, and if he had that much health, I probably would have attacked him.
I should have Medpacked Hawkeye, because Hawkeye would have been able to get over there unstaggered. Anyway, we're talking about a game, but you could go watch the game. It's on YouTube. This is Battle Report number 5, which is the test of the arena format. Okay, so Jeremy seems to be of the opinion that Doctor Strange is too good. Parker, do you agree on the whole that Doctor Strange is too good?
Not
like necessarily egregiously too good, or do you just think he is noticeably better than his point?
I think he is too good by like one special rule, maybe 2. I think he's too good. Yeah, but not enough to increase his points. I don't think it's that.
But and just for clarity, it's not because him in a vacuum is too strong. It's that because like him and Modok, I think is pretty fair. I think Modok is pretty commonly accepted to be better at 5 points. But when you throw like the time stone on him, then all of a sudden it becomes too much when combined with things that are out there.
Oh,
I'm kind of excited to see what would happen if you cosmic invigoration Doctor Strange. What do you guys think happens?
You flip the table
Jeremy
and
breaks
fucking
all his models.
Oh man, I flip the table.
Jeremy
and
just
fucking
whack-a-moles
come
all
around.
of his dudes and leaves. Yeah.
I think it's
Don't think I was thinking about that. I certainly was.
In a vacuum by himself, doing nothing else, I think he actually only gets to use some of his abilities over the course of the game, and he's fine. But as soon as you start doing the things that are obvious, like putting a stone on him and using field dressing, then all of a sudden he's broken. That's too easy. That's too easy. That it shouldn't be that easy to make a character that overpowered.
So I'm going to disagree. I'm going to be the dissenting opinion, which obviously is not going to carry any weight because I'm the one playing Doctor Strange right now. But I definitely see your guys' opinions. I think we made a lot of good arguments. The sum of the parts is definitely greater than the base. So I think if we were able to fix field dressing, or honestly even ban it, I'm of the opinion at this point, I think it's too good. I think it needs to go. If drop off's too good, this card is definitely too good. I think it's better than drop off, and so I think that would fix a lot of things. The only downside being that there would be a lot less accountability for dice spikeage and ability to mitigate that. I just think field dressing, because they don't use field dressing to mitigate dice spiking, which I think was the point of it. Like when you randomly get hit by 8 damage and you die when you shouldn't have. Like that's kind of what the intent of field dressing was for, I think, is to make up for those occasional things. But what it's used for is, hey, Hulk uses Pentagram of Farley, lands in the middle of your army, and starts punching people and dazes one of your guys. So you dogpile Hulk over the next 2 rounds, and they don't activate Hulk, he just dies. Then, randomly, after all your models have activated killing Hulk, someone uses the pentagram, appears, and field dressings Hulk, who now has 19 damage, and he kills 3 people. And you're like, awesome. I'm so glad this happened. Because there's no retaliation. It's like, it doesn't matter what you do, I am going to kill you. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. I like you get to ignore parts of the game, and I don't. And so your only option is to play field dressing in exchange and try and trade actions. So I think
that's a very good
answer, point. I think the answer, which I wanted to bring up earlier, but I decided to wait. My third point from earlier is I think there needs to be a mechanic in the game. There actually need to be 2 mechanics added. One of which is anti-healing. There needs to be a premium mechanic, not something just thrown everywhere, but like, I'm taking this 3-point character because they have a gun that inflicts grievous wounds or anti-healing or disintegration or whatever you want to call it. Some ability that says for the rest of the round, this character cannot have damage removed from it. Something like that. And so it needs to be a premium. It needs to not be free. It needs to not be on like a character like Valkyrie who's already going to be in list. It needs to be a choice you make to add it. It could even be a tactics card and you play it, and for the rest of the activation, this character applies that effect to people. Like, it could be something like that. I think that would fix not only field dressing, but it would also go a long way to fixing Doctor Strange and Patch Up and Medpack and all the other cards that are on the restricted list for that reason. The second thing that we need to add is some kind of immovable token where you can't be pushed or thrown for the round. Like, similar effects, some kind of premium ability. Like, I thought Rooted was going to be that. Like, you could root your guy and they can't be pushed. But apparently Rooted just makes you spend more power. So, but yeah, because that would go a long way towards reining in Web Warriors, I think. What do you guys think? You think those are good ideas? You think I'm stupid? You're looking at me like I'm stupid. God damn it.
I guess adding in new things to the game. Here's what's the best way to put it? I don't know if I appreciate adding in counters to the game. And I know it's a really common technique, and it does generate like the rock paper scissors effect in the game, which is generally a good thing. You want players gravitating towards play styles that counter what's important or popular in the meta, and so then you create like a cycle, right, where people are always trying to discover new things to beat the popular thing, because the popular thing's on top only for a little while until people figure it out. And so I get that. The only problem with something like an anti-push effect or a countering health effect is that if you want to play a list that just doesn't happen to have that in it, then and you basically are saying that you can't play against Doctor Strange, or rather you ought to lose against Doctor Strange. And that is just, I think it's just, I don't know if it's the worst thing, because you're just saying, you're punting, right? You're saying, I don't care about Doctor Strange, I'll just always lose to Doctor Strange. But that feels bad.
So, no, what I'm trying to say, like, I don't think it should be, like, an ability that's, like, it shouldn't be like bleed, right? Where you, like, everyone applies bleed, it happens all the time. Like, I'm thinking something like the consistency of, like, Hex. Like, people have to look it up because they don't know what it does, like, that kind of stuff. Like, it should be a rare ability, and the people it's on, it should be a costly effect to apply to people. Kind of like Root is actually a really good example. Like, Root's on, like, I think 1 or 2 models, and Groot's one of them, and he just spends 2 power to give someone Root for the round. Well, it's not for the round, but... So if you could do that, and honestly, like, if it was even shakeable, that wouldn't be that bad, because you couldn't use it on dazed people. Like, you couldn't shake it off of your dazed guy to then immediately field dress him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something like that, like something that slows down healing. I don't want to see like what happened in War Machine, where all these models gain stealth and then half the game ignores stealth. Well, it's like, what the fuck do we come up with stealth then? Like, why does everyone have access to stealth removal if stealth is supposed to be an advantage?
I don't
I do not want to see that fucking circular logic.
I don't like the I don't like the idea of like a faction ability, like somebody's faction ability being spin to power, and all characters damaged by this ability, this character this turn cannot be healed. I don't know if I like that either, because then you're just then you're just playing. You drop any character you want into that faction, and now you can't ever lose against healing, or rather you take away all the benefits that somebody invested in healing. That seems.
What if it was? Much. But like I think I'm fine with like the tactics card. Like if you could put a tactics card in your list. And it was like once per game for 1 round, 1 model can't be healed. Like that, I think that's fine. They do like a marked for death kind of thing. Actually, does marked for death do that? And I'm just forgetting.
I was looking that up right now.
No, marked for death.
I mean, I literally I was like, what would be a good card that
no,
should do that?
It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that.
Marked for death is just stealth.
Okay. What
rerolls?
Yeah. So what if we had like basically a marked for death, like an easy card to play? It's only going to work 1 time against 1 person, but you're like, you know what? Wolverine is not going to remove another 6 damage this round. He's going to fucking die. Because I'm so tired of Strange removing 3 damage from him, and then he heals for 2, and I just wasted my entire turn. Like, you can just say it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if your opponent doesn't want that to happen, they can run away. Like, it's their call.
Yeah, I like it being, for the reason that I said earlier, I don't like it being attached to a character, because I don't want to be forced to play a character that...
Sure, yeah, that's a fair point. But, yeah, you don't want to... Every roster ends up having this one character in it. Yeah, I don't want to see that either. That's a good call.
He's Gorbin to Wolf.
Yeah. It's like Eris. Like, I'm going to take this model because 90% of the time it's super valuable, and when it's not valuable, whatever. Like, it's worth the cost. So, especially in a game where you don't have to actually field the models you bring. Like, that would be even more insulting. It's like, well, every list just becomes your 6 characters of your faction and 4 people that have specific counters, and you're like, "Well, I wouldn't." Like, they're just in every list. Like, why would you want to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Paralyzed frog
yeah,
guy.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I think the tactics card's probably a really smart way to fix that. And I don't think it's absolutely needed, but I think it would go a long way towards, because it seems like a lot of the stuff in the game that is on the upper end, if not like overpowered, tends to be damage removal kind of stuff. So there it is. That's what I think.
You figured
Those are
it
my
out.
3 cents.
Now we know what grinds your gears.
Yeah, you know what really grinds my gears? All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you guys for sticking out. Jeremy is asleep, and
I'm working on it.
This has been Brandon.
And Parker.
Sleepy Jeremy.
Sleepy Jeremy. And this has been L2 Marvel Crisis Protocol. Have a good night.
Night.
I love you.
Hello and welcome to Learn to Warp. I knew I was going to do it eventually.
Fucking ass.
I knew I was going to do it eventually.
That wasn't for real? Oh, wow.
No, I was a complete...
You blew it!
Wow.
Hold on.
You have one chance.
One jump,
Mom
Johnson.
spaghetti.
Mom spaghetti.
One chance.
3 mile.
One shot.
8 mile reference. I love it.
I was so worried. I was thinking about, like, what episode are we on? Should I say the episode number? And it just came out. You know, like when you answer the phone a certain way for like 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for calling South 7 Pizza.
You never answered the phone as your old job? Yeah. I feel like everyone's answered the phone as their old job before. My favorite part was when Parker showed up to the podcast 2 hours late. That was my favorite part.
To be fair, we also started at 10:30 last week because of sound issues. But
Whoa.
that's because-
I feel like you're blaming somebody. I'm not sure who.
No, I'm actually not.
All right, so
I actually don't blame you at all. This shit happens all the time. It doesn't bug me. So this time it was Regina. Who,
it
by the
finally
way,
happened to Parker, though.
Regina is still awake, by the way. So we're just crossing our fingers that she's going to go to sleep. It's
I assume she's just playing with Saran Wrap to pass the time because Parker's a good dad.
she's terrible bad. But
Gave her a whole bunch of balloons with string.
She's gonna listen to this one day when we're a famous podcast, and she's like, "My dad called me terrible." And you're gonna ruin her life.
I'll be over in the corner reading a newspaper, and I'll put down Terra bad. I said Terra bad.
I said it, and I meant it.
You heard me.
All right, so I feel like we have to choose alter egos for ourselves now. So I think Jeremy is the Hulk because he breaks his headset every week, and that's why we can't record on time.
Whoa.
And then Parker is Mr. Sinister because of how obsessed he is with Cyclops.
That's
but
true.
I don't know who I am. So
You're
do you guys
definitely
want to assign a character to me?
Tornby.
Mortimer Toynbee.
You get to be Mortimer Toynbee for your obsession of how much you hate Toad.
I mean, as much as I hate Toad, I've actually been putting him in rosters.
I know
he
he
a
ain't
2-point slot.
he ain't terrible for 2 points.
I don't enjoy playing him. I'd much rather have any other 2-pointer, but he's just like, that's the only thing. Like, he's in faction. Is there like a bigger troll that I could be? Like, is there someone who just trolls people?
Oh, who is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Marvel Universe? That's a good question.
Just the pun lord?
Yeah. Hello there. Like that guy.
Apparently, Anakin picked some of that up when he started making the aspiration jokes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Do not choke.
Have you ever thought it just rubbed off on him?
Okay, so have you guys seen Robot Chicken did a wonderful spoof of that where it's Vader at the end of Rogue One and
wait,
he
they
turns
still
on the
make Robot Chicken?
I don't know if it's how old it is. It happened after Rogue One, which could be 4 years ago when the movie came out. But the point is, it's the scene where he lights up the lightsaber in a dark hallway and he starts killing people. At the very end, where he's assaulting the spaceship to try to get to Leia, and so he lights up the lightsaber.
The scene he's in.
Yep.
The one scene he's in.
He lights up the lightsaber and he slices the first guy and he stops and goes, "Oh, Vader, choke on your aspirations," and he kills someone else. I slay me, and then he hits another one of them and goes, "Oh, I slayed you. Do you get it? Because you're dead." and he walks down, and every time he kills someone, he does a stupid pun. It's just stupid pun after stupid pun killing people. And I laughed so hard because that was so fucking stupid. That was, at that moment in the movie, I decided to hate the movie. It was a weak movie that is in lots of ways very poor. But I decided to hate the movie when that happened. It's a weak movie that in lots of ways is very poor.
It might be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Then you like the worst one. I'm not saying that you can't like it. It's likable. It's just not. It's a very poor movie. And I know why. The reason why is they wrote it in 3 different periods with 3 different writing teams trying to change the theme of it.
And then just smashed it all together.
Yeah, they just kind of had to put it together. So that's the reason. The reason why I don't like it is the characters develop in this very tangential, obtuse way, and the story takes weird turns. And it's all definitely because they're making choices in the writing process and changing teams and changing themes, and Disney was putting a lot of pressure on them to not be a dark movie, and so they had to lighten it up in weird places. It was strange. The movie just I feel like it doesn't have a sense of itself because it clearly had a vision for being like a dark ride through somebody's kind of like realization that their life is less important than a movement, and like that was the point, but it doesn't reconcile that throughout the entire movie. And for some reason, Darth Vader makes a cameo to make a double pun, and when Darth Vader made a double pun, and it's not just a double pun, he made the double pun and then dropped the mic, right? It's like, Darth Vader, moment of the movie, here he comes, don't choke on your aspirations. And I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god. And I was, at that moment.
So you're saying that Rogue One was Anita Battle Angel bad? Where you just stood up and walked out. You're like, I can't watch this.
I could actually, Alita Battle Angel was really bad. But here's the thing about movies: I will watch them, I will stomach them if I understand why they're bad. Like for example, the source material for Alita Battle Angel was like, what is it, like a 7-issue manga, and they tried to fit it in an hour and a half or like a 2-hour movie, and it was impossible. So they didn't even have an ending. Like the ending is not an ending. It's just like, and now I raise my sword at this guy. No sequel. The end. You're just like, I'm like, okay, I don't get it. Obviously, there was more story, and they literally couldn't put it in. I hated all the Hobbits because they were trying to take a 400, what is it, like a 600-page book and turn it into 3 4-hour movies. Movie. Yeah, it was just like, I was like, just get on the fucking Eagles and go kill a dragon. Like, can we please?
Yeah, I mean, if you just supercut the Hobbit movies, you could probably make one decent movie, and I think someone's actually done that. And
also, the
problem.
Yeah, the writers talked about how, like, the ending of the second one was so weird because Smaug just gets up and leaves to go murder everyone, and then there's an ending.
And the movie ends.
And then the next one starts, and Smaug lives for approximately like 7 minutes of it, dies, and the rest of the movie is a really weirdly long, retarded fight where nobody should be fighting each other until the orcs show up. I don't get it. Also, there's one thing about the Lord of the Rings movies that I think is really funny, and that's the eagles, right? Everybody always talks about the eagles, but nobody talks about the giant fucking sandworms. When did orcs get giant fucking dune-sized sandworms that can carve huge holes in the ground to allow them to move quickly? Because if one of those sandworms showed up for any medieval battle, they auto-win. Because it's a huge fucking sandworm. It punches out of a mountain. That's like solid granite for hundreds of miles. And it just like punches out and goes, and like goes back down. And you're like, why aren't you using this to kill them all? It's a fucking
Parker,
sandworm.
Maybe the hill was alluvial.
So that people often talk about the eagles. Like, just ride the eagles and you say and you kill Sauron. I that's funny. I get it. And you can't use that kind of device to do it. But as soon as I saw the sandworm come out of the ground in that last Hobbit movie, I immediately was just like, well, then, fuck it. Like,
a lot of people analyze these like epic trilogy movies with like the knowledge that they have, and like specifically in like the Lord of the Rings. It's not like you had like internet and stuff like to get this information around. It was like 4 people making a plan and they didn't know what was going to happen. Like, it's like, yeah, we'll just go take the ring to this place, whatever. And it's like, if we approach on the Eagles, maybe that's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea. But like, they didn't know when they left that Sauron was amassing the Uruk-hai. Like, he didn't know that like Rohan was in tatters. Like, he didn't know all this stuff. Like, he thought it was going to be, we walk through 2 stable kingdoms and then make the last 100-yard dash with an army, maybe. Like, that's what they thought was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, it's like, well, never mind, the world's ending.
And the eagle thing actually doesn't bother me that much because it is a plot device, right? We're in trouble. We'll use the eagles because it'll solve the problem. And it's also a beautiful set piece. That's fine. It actually doesn't bug me that much. What actually bugged me is a giant army used an enormous monster to carve a hole through the ground, but not to fight.
How did they train the monster?
Yeah, they trained the monster.
How they trained the 300-meter-long sandworm?
Yeah.
Also, how did they tell it where to go? Because it was underground. It's like, yeah, that was just stupid. That's unforgivably dumb.
Right.
That was just there because the CGA guys were like, hey, we have this model for a sandworm. Can we make this work? You're like, yeah, why not? Like, that was how that happened.
Yeah.
He's like a nihilist. It's like a nihilist, dude.
Anyway, I really like the concept of Star Wars, and I like the universe and everything, but I really end up having this love-hate relationship with a lot of the movies, because they're not good.
No.
Mainly is my point.
They're not.
All of them are bad, and anyone who wants to defend the Star Wars movies, you don't really have a leg to stand on. I'm sorry. Like, I love Star Wars for a lot of reasons, but the quality of the movies is not one of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just hang on to this nostalgia for the movies. Like, when's the last time a lot of these people sit down and watch the original trilogy? And they're like, no, like the actual original trilogy.
It doesn't
like,
age.
This is the best cinema ever. It's like, it's not. Like, it's got some cool scenes, and it's got a lot of cool ideas behind it. But I absolutely hate how, like, this giant arching universe that has all these cool things in it, and we go to, like, 4 planets, and we meet 14 people, and everything else is just scenery.
Yeah.
It's like the scene in episode 1 where he's sitting there with Qui-Gon, and it's the kid, and he's like, look at all the stars. Do they all have planets? Like, yeah, most of it. Like, I'm the first one to see them all. Meanwhile, we've seen 3 planets. Like, What the fuck? Like, everything happens on Tatooine or Coruscant, and that's fucking it. And then there's occasional unnamed jungle planet. That's about it.
Endor is really fucking popular.
Yeah, exactly. There's like Endor, Hoth, Tatooine, Coruscant, and then Alderaan was alive for like an entire hour, and then it died.
Yeah, we never actually got to see the surface of it until like one of the prequels. We saw it for like half a second.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and it didn't matter.
Right.
I guess Naboo, everyone's favorite planet. Let's spend more time on the surface of Naboo.
We spent a lot of time on Naboo.
Can you imagine?
It was only like 3. Go ahead.
Well, they're eventually going to run into the Borg, right? Like, that's going to happen. And, like, fucking Klingons. And I mean, there's a lot of shit out there that they didn't bring up that's real scary.
Well, yeah. We're on Naboo for, like, 12 whole minutes, but it feels like 30 hours. Like, because it just grinds to a halt.
The best thing to happen to the Star Wars universe is the Star Wars universe was captivating. It was exciting to people, and so it generated a huge universe of mythos of people that actually had writing talent and could create characters. Like all of the, and now it's not canon anymore, but a lot of that stuff was so strong and so interesting and fun to read. And then now creative types at Disney have a hold of it, and so of course they're making cool stuff there. But it's like because they could polish any turd. But Star Wars is ostensibly really bad movies that are also very captivating. It's the Bad Boys 2 of sci-fi. Not very good, but man, it's fun to watch.
So I feel like it's this really, the recent stuff anyway, is this really big double-edged sword of the internet. And so, originally, obviously, pre-internet, the original series and also really the prequels existed before social media and a lot of the well-used internet portions. And so you end up with the original trilogy just came out the way they were going to make them, and so there was nothing to do about it. And then the prequels came out, and obviously there was a lot of mixed feelings. And so now Disney has it. They're trying to release the second or the sequel trilogy, and everyone's online complaining about how their favorite character isn't in it. And too much of what they do is listen to the audience, when if they had just made a fucking trilogy that had nothing to do with the original trilogy, I think a lot of people would have been happy. And instead, everyone's like, well, there's no Luke, there's no Boba Fett, there's no this, there's no that. It's like, we don't care. No one needs that. And then when they actually get into the movie, everyone complains about how they do it. And I'm like, how about we just make a new thing that's cool? Like, it's okay. It's a big fucking universe. We don't have to only have 7 characters. Can we just move on and have new characters?
I told my brother, I felt like after I got done with the last one, the episode 9, when I got done with it, I left the theater like I had just watched somebody tie 1,000 shoelaces on 1,000 people's shoes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, all right. Okay.
It's like watching one of those like work videos where like someone's extremely efficient and he's like barely he's just like throwing shit in the air and it's going in the right place.
One of those kids that assembles Rubik's Cubes in like less than 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was watching that. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Done. Done. And I was just like, this is exhausting and kind of obnoxious, and I would like for it to stop and show me a story. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, where's Rose? I gotta go do a thing. Okay. It's like weird things, and it was all just like listening to the internet, right? How many internet questions can we answer with 2 hours? We have to answer all of them in 2 hours. So how quickly can we do this? Well, we'll need at least 84 scene changes. Like we'll need at least 18 different planets. How are they going to even get from one planet to the other when we keep blowing up their ships? We'll just keep giving them more ships. I lost count at 8.
How are we going to add any emotional investment? Well, let's kill off some people. It's like, but we need them because there's only 7 characters.
Okay, so
we'll bring all of them back in the next scene.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Like. Because like they killed 4 people, one of which was a lightsaber. All of them came back to life.
Yeah, the movie was.
All right. Anyway, I can tell we're losing Jeremy because Jeremy's the biggest of Star Wars guys.
It's also 11 o'clock, and we lose Jeremy at 11 o'clock anyway. Let's roll.
That's true. Jeremy's usually asleep by now.
This is a nice.
This is my 5 a.m. morning, man. This is a late night for me. What I will say though,
we chose to record.
It's fine.
On 5 a.m.
It's fine, but what I'll say is at least Star Wars gave me a live-action version of the God King Emperor from 40K, which was really cool. And said Emperor also, like the sandworms that barreled through the mountains, how is it the Emperor hadn't been lightning bolting ships out of the sky for fucking 9 episodes?
Yeah.
Like,
I hated that so much.
Turns out he can shoot lightning into the sky and take out fleets.
Yeah. I liked everything about the Emperor until that exact moment. And I was like, oh, they ruined it. It's like they went so far beyond the shark, they never even noticed they jumped it.
Yeah.
Same thing, like, we have a fleet of 100,000 super Star Destroyers or whatever. It's like, no one. Where'd you get the metal? Like, do you know how much metal that is? Like,
you know what?
Let alone like nuclear reactor material. Like, where'd you get all this?
It straight up.
No one even knows this planet exists. It's not like they're a trade hub.
It straight up became 100% Fast and the Furious. It's like we just have badass cars. We go really fast and we fucking Tokyo drift and shoot guns and shit. Cool, right? And they're like, okay, cool, and that's what they did.
Also, like, go back and watch the original trilogy and like tell me what Jedis can do. And then it's like, we just got to push everything so far beyond what it used to be. It's like, originally, like a Jedi could take on, like, 5 stormtroopers by himself, and that was, like, a good fight. And now it's like, well, if it's not, like, 100,000, then, like, what are we even doing here? Like, people are tired of that. They want to see, like, armies versus one guy now. Like, okay. Anyway, we're moving past Star Wars.
Here.
All right, Parker. Did I miss any news?
No, I was actually just staring at that real fast, and yeah, it's been pretty quiet. The only thing really is her card.
What do you mean?
Doesn't really
have her card.
I know, that's the new thing. But what's funny is that there really isn't anything on it that's super. They really did a good job of saying almost everything in the thing.
Yeah, the only question I had was, is her strike attack going to gain power? And it does, so she's just better than Hulk. Yeah. But she only gets 2 power a turn instead of 3, and she doesn't have a power or anything that moves her out of activation that she gets to choose. It's all on the aggressive part. So,
was she a lawyer in the comic books?
Yeah, she's a lawyer.
Okay, I'm like, what is all this garbage? Like, I don't understand.
Did you not get all the references? Like,
I mean, I
why
got
is all
it.
this
like,
stuff like courtroom shit?
I'm like, she's obviously a lawyer, but it's like, oh, a bird lawyer. You know, like, all I can do is think it's dumb shit. Harvey Birdman lawyer.
So I put here in the
she's
news.
the single female lawyer from Futurama.
So I just put in the Google for the podcast topics. For you, Jeremy, I put She-Hulk attorney ? Just so we make sure to mention that Jeremy may or may not have known that she was an attorney.
Jeremy, just Google search attorney and let me know when you find She-Hulk.
Perfect. Thank you.
She'll probably be in there.
That's exactly what I did initially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is the main topic really Doctor Strange too strong?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with that? Maybe you should have shown up 2.5 hours ago and you could have helped us with topics.
No, that's just totally fine. It doesn't bug me at all. Do we want a comic corner today?
Yes.
Okay.
Luckily, we have your one from last time.
Yeah, what was the one from last time?
I believe it was called Poop Butts.
Oh, man. I hope not.
I told you to write it down so you didn't forget. I think
did.
you said you didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd you write it then?
I didn't like it that much.
Do you have a She-Hulk comic?
Oh, no. I'll just do Doctor Strange stuff. Because we're talking about Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I love Doctor Strange. I'll get some Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I wanted to learn about bird
Jeremy, you
law.
look tired. I like bird law. Bird law is my favorite kind of law.
Kangaroo
It's like,
court.
well,
Kangaroo
if we were gonna go 1-on-1 in a round of bird law, I think you'd be very impressed. As you well know, it's 3 strikes and bye bye birdie.
Bye bye birdie.
What is that from?
It's Always Sunny.
Oh, that's right.
Did you watch the video I sent you?
Yes. Did you fuck my mom?
Did you fuck my mom, Santa Claus?
Fuck my mom.
I barely remembered that episode, and like when the Christmas music started, I started getting these flashbacks. I'm like, I think I remember Charlie doing something to Santa Claus. And I had to go find it. And I was like, oh my god, I forgot about this episode. It's so good.
Yeah.
If you like dark humor, you need to watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's the greatest. It's season 5, episode 13, it looks like. Yeah.
I have watched the Pepe Sylvia scene now like 4 times this week. I don't know why I got stuck on it. This guy, Pepe Sylvia, he just keeps coming up. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. And then I go talk to Carol.
Not only do all these people exist, but they've been asking for their mail on a daily basis.
Carol!
Yeah.
But there's no one there.
The Pepe Sylvia scene is probably the most famous scene of Always Sunny, which is odd because like it's a funny scene, but it's not that funny. Like there's a lot more funny stuff.
Yeah.
Like remember when I showed you the Super Bowl episodes? Mm-hmm. And Charlie is like killing himself on purpose? Like, what is happening?
That was really funny. All of that stuff was funny.
Yeah.
I think the funniest
Also,
episode is when they're in actual Charlie's house and they explain how they go to sleep at night. Oh my god!
Yeah, the D switches places and they take a turn going in each other's shoes.
Black out.
It's like, all right,
you have to do
first thing you want to do is you're gonna
wolf
wolf down all this cat food. Then you're gonna breathe in all this glue out of this bag, and then you're gonna chug a beer. And he's like, why would I do this? Because there's something about a combination of beer, cat food, and glue that makes you immediately fall unconscious. He's like, what? He's like, yeah. It's like, why would I want to do that? It's like, well, you see, there's like 10,000 cats outside my window, and they're not going to let you sleep if you don't do this. He's like, well, there's probably 10,000 cats outside your window because you have all this cat food in your house. You have 30 cans of open cat food in your room. He's like, no, I have 10,000 cats outside my window because my apartment has 10 million rats in it. Like, oh, okay. And then immediately Frank kicks the door open, slams it shut, and just like inhales an entire can of cat food, breathes into the bag, and then he's like, and just like falls over into the bed.
And then you start hearing cats cry.
Yeah, there's just like enormous meowing noises. I think the episode I realized I loved the show was the Dayman episode, where they do they form a band. And then Charlie in his glue-infused... Oh, no. He was huffing paint at the time. His paint-infused delirium wrote a song called Dayman that we have made many references to.
Fighter of the night, man.
Champion of the sun. He's a master of karate and friendship.
I also really love the... Oh, shit. What's the name of the family they live with? No, the
McPoyles?
Yeah, the McPoyle family. Mr.
McPoyle
Royal
family.
McPoyle. He took Margaret's vocal cords. he took his ears and his eyes.
The boat one is...
Scene.
Oh, yeah, the gang buys a boat.
Oh,
That's
my
a great
God.
one.
When
If anyone hasn't noticed, all of our episodes are named in the same format they name their shows.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, The Gang Buys a Boat is a great episode. That's the implication.
There must have been some sort of horse
When
murder.
Dennis...
Oh, God, and that's the one where he goes, he's like...
I believe he calls it a horse massacre.
He goes, all right, give me the keys. And he throws them overhanded straight into the water.
He just...
And he goes...
Fastball pitches the keys.
He's like, what in the hell are you doing? He goes, I only throw overhand. That's how I throw.
You know that about me. Yeah.
A horse massacre, yep.
So what I'm hearing here is that you're looking for some sort of P. Diddy-esque shrimping vessel.
Oh, you were paying attention. I thought with the pinky ring that you weren't, but exactly.
You know? Yeah.
We're
that's
flushing
exactly
dick towel money. That's what it is. $2,000.
So I
flush.
play. Yeah, that's the thing. They think they're like the richest people in Philadelphia. They go to buy a houseboat and they have $2,000 to their name combined.
And dick towel money.
All the money is from dick towels.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Nobody wanted the kitten mittens. Just dick towels.
Also,
No.
every joke.
No, they sold Kidmans. Don't you remember?
Oh,
But the lawyer screwed him and took the patent for himself, and the fucking lawyer contract he had Charlie sign because he can't read was just a release for all royalties for the fucking Kidmans. And so all the Kidman money goes to the lawyer that they keep harassing.
oh my God.
Oh,
I
man.
forgot about that part.
I like every joke that helps me remember that Charlie can't read. Every Charlie can't read joke.
Oh God.
After I finish cleaning the bar, I like to come out here and turn on the delicious Coors sign. Let everybody know we have ice cold Coors inside. Like, that sign doesn't say Coors, Charlie. The sign says closed! That's why no one's in our bar, because you turn the closed sign on every morning.
Get some ice cold Coors.
He's like, I don't know. Are you sure? Oh, God. Brian started watching the show. He's on, like, episode 8. Oh, man.
All right, let's podcast. I'm podcasting right now.
Are you finally ready? Holy shit. Let it be known,
ready.
Parker was not ready until 11:11. All right, so you got your
Timestamp.
Yeah, I'm good, yo.
But are you ready?
I'm so ready.
One ready. Oh, God. I have gas. Hold on. I'll get some water. Hold on.
Champion of the night, man. No, fighter of the night, man. That's right. Champion of the sun. Master of karate and friend to everyone.
You haven't watched a bunch of episodes? You just watched one?
I've watched several like random ones. I haven't sat down and watched the series. I don't have any subscription to anything, so it's just been like when I'm hanging out with Brandon or when it pops up on the internet for free and random websites. So I've seen episodes of it.
It's
Wait,
good.
The
way I always see it, it's like if there's 12 episodes or 16, like there's usually about 4 or 5 episodes that are okay, but the rest are pretty brilliant. Like there's some real brilliant shit in there that's like really good.
There's usually 3 or 4 episodes that you like can't live without seeing. Like there's 3 or 4 that are just absolutely hilarious.
They're kernels of exactly what it's about.
One of the problems with the show is that I don't watch television hardly at all ever. When I have free time, I'm reading comic books or playing games. But when I do watch TV, it's with my wife, and she would just. I don't think she would hate the show, but she wouldn't like any of the crude stuff. And it's not that the show is actually that crude. It's like it's the debauchery. It's the horrible way that they live. I think it would just depress her.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, definitely. But they try and actually do a lot of the really gruesome stuff as like satire.
Yeah.
And so,
but like she can appreciate that it's fine. Like she knows that I like it. The only show that I've started watching recently, because I always love it, is Big Mouths. I love Big Mouths. I think the show is great. And I will watch that show when it comes out on Netflix. And she just walk by every once in a while, and she's like, "How can you hear about jerk off jokes like one more time?" I'm like, I don't know. I will do it. I don't care. They're wonderful.
Makes me laugh.
They're wonderful. Maurice, God, he makes me. Every time he pops on and shows another fuzzy dick thing, I always laugh. It's so funny. I don't care.
Well, I was thinking about watching it, but if it's just a bunch of fuzzy dicks, I'd probably pass.
It's not. That's the point. Is they don't overuse it, but they use it enough that you count on it showing up some point.
It's really funny. It's.
I'm excited to watch the new season of Archer too. I didn't like all like the Dreamland stuff and like all the alternate universe stuff, but I like the original stuff. So hopefully the new season's more like the old stuff. Anyway. So we're not going to be in much of a hurry today. We've got not a lot of stuff to talk about.
I'm fine with a shorter episode.
We
too.
might, yeah, exactly. With us starting later and everything, we might actually save the Doctor Strange discussion for last, just so we can meter it based on how much time we have left. Alrighty, you guys good?
Mm-hmm.
Need anything? Bathroom breaks, water.
Let's roll.
I figured I would do that one since I misspoke earlier.
I like that.
So a couple things. Jeremy, when you put your mic up on the side of your headset,
Yeah,
you know how you do that?
Yeah.
It mutes you.
I know.
So when you're yawning and coughing, put your mic up,
Oh,
and we won't hear it.
eh.
When you're opening you literally walked over, sat down, put your mic down, and cracked a soda right into the mic. Like, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I had to put down a timestamp
Perfect.
because you like don't know how to drink.
I don't know. I never had that before.
He literally holding it like you're like that was like what he did. I'm like, what are you doing? And Parker, you did the same thing we talked about not doing anymore, which is you got into a really long rant and you turned away from the camera the whole time you were talking. So I was like doing this wrap it up motion, and you're like staring at the wall, like, and then. I was like, God damn it, Parker.
Sorry. I was actually trying.
But other than that,
hard.
I think
When did I do that?
it was one of the last things we did. You did pretty good through most of the episode. I'm trying to think. I think it was your overall summary of Doctor Strange.
I think
you
I got,
went for like a
I,
full
when I was
2
getting
minutes.
tired here around about half an hour ago, and
Mhm.
I was meandering around things instead of saying what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're on, Jeremy. You're going to bring your criminals, and we're going to swap lists, and I'm going to play against my list, and it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be great. I'll put $5 on the game.
Fucking shut up.
I want you to know I am fading really
Pass.
hard. When can I stop? Like, can we clap?
That depends. Are you never going to mention Angela ever again?
Why can't I? By the way, that was actually news. I wasn't trolling. Like,
That's not news.
It was
No,
upcoming.
you were definitely trolling.
It's an upcoming release.
That's not news.
Oh,
We've been known that she's coming out in January for 6 months.
It's news.
Oh, I thought it was the first.
They
I'm with you,
announced
Parker.
it like 6
It's
months
news.
ago.
I thought it was the.
It's not
We
news.
said it said first quarter. I didn't know, and so when I saw that on the thing, I was like, okay.